Right, so we should be live on air. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the Let's Talk Sport race watch along for the Hungarian Grand Prix. This is the last race before the summer break, before we head to Spa at the end of August. But this has been built up for the last couple of weeks, obviously with the incidents that we had at the British Grand Prix. So, welcome everybody to this race. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, will they collide again at this Hungarian Grand Prix? Joined again with me at this race watch along is Conor Porter. Conor, welcome. What are our thoughts going into this race here at the Hungaroring in Budapest?
Well, Jack, I think we thought we saw the drama, yesterday in qualifying between Max and Lewis with what Red Bull called gamemanship. We're on the last go round in qualifying. With Lewis going slowly around just to eat up the time a little bit until having to cross the line before the checkered flag went down. I thought we saw it all then, but no, we start the coverage today with the possibility of a wet race and potential wet tyres going on as the rain is falling in Hungary. So suppose Jack, anything could go today. We were speaking off air about the different compounds between the mediums and softs and how that could be influential going into the first couple of corners between Max and Lewis. But now with this rain, anything can happen, and it'd be interesting to see when these tire blankets go off, who's got what on. Do they have the inserters on, or are they sticking with the dry compounds for now and potentially making an early pit stop if the rain gets worse? So yeah, be interesting to see what tires everyone has on for the formation lap coming up. Has some of them decided to go wet, so have they stuck with the dry tires? We'll see in a matter of moments, I reckon.
Yeah, I guess normally when they start off for their formation lap, it normally gives us a tyre list of who's got what tyre compound on. It looks like I haven't seen any of the cars out there yet who look to be on the intermediate tyres, but obviously the majority of the covers do look sort of the same, so it is hard to tell until they actually start their formation lap. But I think obviously with the bit of rain we have seen before obviously we started on air, it looks like actually with the tyres coming up compound, they're all on the intermediate compound tyres. So that is, I don't want to say a little bit disappointing, because I was hoping they might be able to use the soft compound tyres to start with, but obviously the conditions on the track are wet enough for all the teams to be out on the intermediates. So yeah, this will be interesting, because obviously all the qualifying tyres that have used in Q2 have gone out the window now. Everybody's got the same fresh intermediates on. So we'll see who gets a better start off the line. Obviously, Max Verstappen is famed for being great in the wet conditions. Doesn't actually look that wet now on the racetrack, Connor, to be honest. I know obviously we've had the sort of like gazebos around all the cars, but I wouldn't say it's that wet. I don't know if it stopped raining either. So we'll see how long maybe they even have the intermediate tyres on for.
Yeah, I suppose the big thing would be, is there any gatherings of water on the track, and is there any puddles or things like that, because that will affect the tire grip and ultimately decide whether or not they go on to the soft compounds sooner or later. But I think we heard on some of the coverages of the driver radios beforehand that the rain wasn't going to be around for very long, or it wouldn't be a heavy downpour to force full wets.
Yeah.
But with the track as it is, looking at it now, it looks damp, but not nothing that would result in a wet tire being used. So I think inters will be fine. And then, as you said, Jack, if it rains a bit more, then maybe the inters will have to stay on for longer. But just looking, Alonso, I think, is struggling to get a little bit of grip on the formation lap. He had to steer hard. That was Esteban Ocon, sorry.
That's
had to steer harder into the corner. Huge lock there. Not going around the corner at all. So maybe the Inters will stick around for a little bit, because they're struggling to get grip on them for now. But we'll see how the race goes. But disappointing that we won't get that medium versus soft compound into turn one, because of course in qualifying yesterday, the Mercedes qualified on the medium tires, both Valtteri and Lewis, whereas Max and Perez only managed to qualify in Q2, on the softs. So we won't get that battle, but yeah, it all comes down to race starts now. Who's got the stronger race start? Who's got the quickest reactions off the line, and who's going to defend well going into that first and second corner. Absolutely. After the long straights.
And I have to say, I've just ended the poll of who will win the Hungarian Grand Prix. I have to say that's very close between people voting for Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton currently winning that, ended it now with 47% of the votes. Max Verstappen has also got 43% with Valtteri Bottas with 6%, and the other bracket with 2% as well. So that's pretty close between both Max and Lewis going into this final race before the summer break. Obviously, I think it's 7 or 8 points. Is it now the gap in the championship between Lewis
8 points,
Hamilton?
I think it is. Yeah,
and Max
8 points.
Verstappen. So this is a very interesting race now, depending on where these two finish going into the summer break. Both of them will want to be ahead going into these couple of weeks off. So they're just finishing with this formation lap now. It was a great shot you can see from the helicopter view, waiting for them to come down to that first turn as well. It looks like, who's that coming into the pits? Is that
Giovinazzi's into the pits? Yeah.
I hope that's not a retirement already. Is he changing tyres?
He's gone into the box.
On dry?
So I don't know. He's not starting the race. He can't be starting the race because he's retired.
He's retired already. So we'll see about that in a minute, as we're just getting the 5 lights are going, and we seem to be off. We are off. So Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas looks to have had a bit of a poor start. The McLarens are coming behind him as well. We've obviously got Max Verstappen there. Lewis Hamilton has a bit of a lead. Max Verstappen goes out a little bit to see if he can make a manoeuvre. Hamilton has that coming. Oh, who was that in the McLaren? There's been an incident there. That could be a Mercedes out. I think it's Valtteri Bottas, and it looks like a McLaren that's out as well. Lewis Hamilton seems to have got a very decent getaway. That is a McLaren as well. Another one is both McLarens had issues. That looks like Lando Norris, who's in and around the Alpines as well. But Lewis Hamilton seems to have had a very clean getaway, but that was very difficult corner for the other drivers around him. I think that was Bottas out.
Yeah, Bottas. I was watching him on his way back to the grid on the formation lap. He lost it on the back corner, and it's definitely wet out there for certain if that's happening. And then just seeing him have a bit of a lockup, and we've got George Russell struggling to get around the chicane now. But there's floor damage on the Red Bull. Safety car now out as well.
Wow.
And it is confirmed. Safety car out. Valtteri Bottas out of the Grand Prix. As is Charles Leclerc. He's out of the Grand Prix as well. I'm not too sure who else is there, but that was a huge collision on that first corner, because not only was it Charles and Bottas getting damaged, but we saw both Red Bulls get involved in the collision.
Is that an Aston Martin front wing next to him?
Yeah. There was about 6 or 7 cars involved in that collision there on the first corner.
Yeah.
Just Valtteri Bottas, just watching it on the replay, Valtteri Bottas gets jumped early by Perez and Lando, but then Bottas just simply couldn't slow down, and he went into the back of Lando and lost his front wing, and that just had a knock-on effect onto all the other cars around him.
That's Verstappen's car that Norris banged into as well, so that could be damage on the Red Bull of Verstappen as well. As we just watch the replay again, obviously, like you said, Bottas goes into Norris, who then Norris collides into Verstappen, so that could be really bad damage for the Red Bull, whether that really does affect him. But yeah, you can see that from Bottas's replay. Crashes into Norris, but loses that left front tyre, so yeah, he's definitely out of the race straight away from that impact he's had there with the McLaren.
Yeah, Bottas just couldn't slow down. You could see him applying the brakes behind the McLaren, but the car simply wasn't stopping. So that was just a racing incident, in my opinion. Just unfortunate, really, that it's taken 2 cars out of the race and had a big impact on both Red Bulls and Perez is out as well. Sorry, and Stroll. So four cars out.
I haven't seen Perez with the stuff.
Yeah, Giovinazzi is racing. He must have started from the pitting time. I don't know how, because he was in the box, but I guess that's how it goes. But yeah, on the counter, it's saying, "Oh wow, more floor damage coming from Max Verstappen as he came out of the pits." So that's a major damage to that Red Bull there.
Yeah.
That's going to be very detrimental for his race. So confirmation: Perez, Stroll, Charles Leclerc, and Bottas out of this race. Commiserations to Jamie, because I know Jamie's a Perez fan, and he's in the chat today. I saw a couple of messages from him. But
Yeah.
Jack, I don't know what it is, but every single time we watch a race together, it seems to be absolutely crazy. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, the only thing that's being missing right now is a red flag popping out for this incident, because it is normally the case that we get a red flag when both of us are on watch-alongs together. But there's Sergio Perez's car parked on the circuit where I think he's just given up. So I'm not too sure what's happened there. Ooh, Verstappen.
We got a red flag.
Have we? Yes, we do.
Oh,
yes, we do. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Every time
Full
me and
house
Connor,
bingo.
Yep.
Tick off your bingo cards. We're done. Full house.
Every time me and Connor are on, there always seems to be a red flag incident. And obviously we go back to Imola as well. There was a red flag incident with George Russell and Bottas. Me and Jamie were doing the commentary that day, but Connor did actually come in at the end of the race, so that counts as well. So yeah, a lot of debris again. There's some more Aston Martin debris. Haven't seen Lance Stroll's reasoning for that, but it must have been there was a collision again with, I think, Daniel Ricciardo going into turn one as well. So whether that's had an impact, I haven't really seen Charles Leclerc's either in terms of him having an incident. So hopefully they're going to show a few more replays now as we see Valtteri Bottas just chilling out really on the Armco barriers, thinking, well, what am I going to do for the rest of this Sunday afternoon? A little bit disappointing really for him, but the incident really was a little bit caused by him because he wasn't able to slow down and go in. He went into the back of Lando Norris's McLaren, but like you said, Connor, obviously the track was wet enough for intermediates, and he just couldn't get the brakes working for that for them new tyres that were on.
Yeah, when you watch the onboard of Bottas, it showed it in the early part of the coverage as the safety car was coming out. You could see the moment where he locked up his tyres from the braking, and he was still going forward. It was just no grip whatsoever, and it might have been due to a little bit of being behind Lando in that situation there, and just not having the air resistance. And yeah, that is massive body damage to that Red Bull there, as you'll see on your image in a moment, Jack. But yeah, on Bottas, the grip level clearly wasn't there, as we saw on the onboard. And it just had a chain reaction event onto a bunch of other cars, about 7 cars involved, 4 resulting in retirements due to damage. And another red flag on a race weekend, this time into lap 3 rather than the first lap as it was in the British Grand Prix. You just showed a picture of Perez's Red Bull there. I couldn't really see what damage had been done to it.
Is it because maybe he's had extensive damage that he's just had to pull the car over? Or because obviously we haven't seen that much. But I mean, the one thing you would say is obviously with Verstappen, say, still being in the race, even with his floor damage, Mercedes had a bonus last time round with Hamilton and Verstappen colliding. Hamilton did get a bit of damage. They were able to sort of touch that up during the red flag process. Do you think maybe Red Bull might have the same ability for Verstappen's car now with this red flag?
I'm not too sure, because it just depends as well if there's floor damage or if it's just the bodywork, because it was quite a hard collision on him.
Oh, you can see
from
Perez,
Lando Norris.
You can see the steam. Into him. You can see the steam coming out of Perez's car with the collision on the replay. So that's Sergio Perez is more of a terminal. How he got around the rest of the track, I don't know. You can see that they're all puffing out from the back there straight away from that collision. So, and that looks like Daniel Ricciardo, who's the wrong way around as well in the other McLaren. So
yeah,
not great starts for either of them either.
Just looking on the onboard, and just Lando just went straight into the side of Max. There was nothing that Lando could do because it was just contact on the back of him from Bottas, and
Hamilton
just lost
was
all
so
grip
lucky,
completely.
wasn't he?
Yeah, Hamilton was really lucky to get out of that unscathed, really. Showing an onboard now of Perez as he goes around the corner, but yeah, he was just a victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, because Bottas couldn't slow down and just went straight into the side of him, and then he was caught up in all the debris, and ultimately I think that was probably some sort of engine damage. It was one of the components in the engine that's probably caused all that steam to flare up from Perez's car.
So Bottas takes off in second gear, really gets bogged down from the tyres not responding to the track, and like I said, gets overtaken by Perez and Verstappen and Norris. And yeah, I don't know if it's the slipstream, I don't know if it's obviously the tyres, but the track, he just couldn't get them brakes on full lock. Just nothing happening there, and was literally just a passenger as he went into Lando Norris there. So I'm seeing a few people in the chat obviously going, that's 100% planned by Mercedes. Obviously, I don't think Bottas would go for that, simply because he obviously is so far behind in the points now, and Mercedes obviously want both drivers to be finishing. So I just think it's obviously unlucky for that. But look at that from Max Verstappen.
Don't forget as well, there's rumours out there that George Russell could be in the Mercedes seat next year. So Bottas has got to fight for every single point that he can get in order to try and convince Mercedes to. And actually, just showing a replay of Stroll. Stroll was trying to avoid the incident, and probably the worst thing that you could do in wet weather is to go onto the grass with the tyres. He did exactly that.
He was trying to surf a bit there, I think.
Yeah. But Bottas is fighting for every point because he wants this Mercedes seat. He's good enough to be in the Mercedes seat. But incidences like this just won't help his cause, because it just means he gets fewer points. And arguably, there's been points in the season earlier on where there's been incidences that have been out of his control. The collision, as we mentioned earlier, with George in Imola, the wheel nut failure in Monaco. A lot of times there's been points in the season where Bottas has been unable to score points because of things out of his control. This today, arguably, you could say was in his control, simply not braking soon enough, being too close to Lando, and knowing that it's wet weather, that the conditions on the track have changed, so therefore the grip level on the tyres have changed, and just miscalculating those things. And when you want to be in that Mercedes seat, these are just things that you can't do, because otherwise it's going to cost them points in the constructors, and that's something that Mercedes just won't want at all, because otherwise they'll miss out on the constructors.
Showing a replay there of a pit stop for Norris there with the Alfa Romeo going back, but obviously still red flag conditions. So obviously with that incident with the McLarens, Lando Norris is currently in 15th place. So I'll go through the order at the moment as it stands. Obviously with the red flag conditions, obviously we've got 4 drivers out and we're only on lap 3. It's another red flag as Conor has mentioned as well. Lewis Hamilton is still in the lead, was very lucky. He obviously got a fantastic getaway and just avoided all the incidents as it were. So Hamilton is still in the lead. Esteban Ocon is now in second place. We did say this, Conor, off air. Like Toto Wolff said yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Pierre Gasly leading into turn 2, and he's almost close, but it is the other Frenchman of Esteban Ocon, who is actually managed by Toto Wolff, or has like affiliation with Mercedes. So read into that what you will. Sebastian Vettel is in 3rd place at the moment. Obviously kept the Aston Martin car out of danger. Carlos Sainz, who we mentioned as well earlier, Conor, had a difficult qualifying yesterday, but is up into 4th place and is the only Ferrari still left out on the track at the moment.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz only managed to qualify in 15th yesterday because of an incident in Q2 that got him eliminated. They were saying on the coverage yesterday that it might have been the wind that caused him to crash into the wall. But a bit unfortunate for Carlos Sainz, but he'll be happy with his start today, that he's managed to go through that huge collision in the first corner unscathed.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there as well, Esteban Ocon qualified in 8th yesterday, ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso, but now in 2nd. And I think the last time Ocon finished on the podium was
I want to say Bahrain last year, or I think
it was Bahrain. Yeah, I was trying to remember who finished on the podium with Perez and Vettel in Azerbaijan. I can't remember who finished 3rd that day. I don't think it was Ocon. For some reason, I thought it was Ocon, but I don't think it was. But yeah, this is a great position for Ocon to be in, especially with it being wet as well. If he's able to manage, and if there's a change onto the softs earlier, potential hard tire maybe to go to the end of the race and try and push in that position. But Carlos Sainz behind him in the faster car. We've seen what Vettel can do in that Aston Martin so far this season. Vettel's in 3rd at the moment. Sonoda has done well in that AlphaTauri, and we've seen how well that AlphaTauri can drive.
Just mention the next two, because I've just mentioned the next couple that are coming through as well.
Latifi in 6th, Alonso in 7th, Russell in 8th, Raikkonen in 9th.
Who's in 10th as well?
Mick Schumacher, potentially on the course to get Haas their first points of the season and his first points of his F1 career.
Brilliant.
Sitting in 10th at the moment, up 10 places from the back of the grid at the start of the race. So what a drive Mick Schumacher's had in the first opening laps to jump 10 places.
Yeah, keep it out of the way. Just don't get involved. So that's the what both Williams drivers have done with Latifi and Russell, and of course Mick Schumacher as well. We've got Pierre Gasly in 11th, Daniel Ricciardo in 12th, Max Verstappen is in 13th position at the minute, Nikita Mazepin 14th, Lando Norris 15th. Now Giovinazzi, from what I've got on my driver tracker system here, he came in, Connor, when he came in for the start, he actually came in and put the medium compound tyres on. So completely didn't take part in the race start, but actually pitted after the formation lap and put on the medium compound tyres, which was very interesting indeed. And of course, then we've got Valtteri Bottas out, Lance Stroll also out, Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez also out. So we've got 4 drivers out as we stand at the moment on a red flag on lap 3. I'll just go through some of the comments. Jamie's gone, Bottas was clearly given an executive order 66 by Toto Wolff. White then Red Bulls out, all of them. Interesting, Jamie. Interesting way of going about it. I hope they don't treat Russell like they did Bottas. And then we've also got this sport is so weak, it's like the red flag in races for fun nowadays. Weak red flag, safety car at most. Either that or I'm still in early 2000s F1 safety standards. Now,
yeah, I think you're still in the early 2000s with your safety standards there.
They are chucking red flags out like it's sweets at the minute, but obviously with the amount of debris from 4 cars being out on the first lap, I think it was only inevitable, especially with it being so, each place around the track. It wasn't just like it was in one place that they might be able to clear up. I think the red flag, obviously they had to do it. I've got, is it approximately 15 minutes that the race will resume in?
That's what it says. That's what it says at the top. So that would be just after past for us on our times. But on the red flags, you got cars stationary, unable to be moved unless there's trucks coming out. Those 4 of them around the circuit. You got debris everywhere. Plus is a wet race. I mean, it's got to be a red flag, unfortunately, and just safety wise, just get everything cleared. And as we see, it's only going to be another 15 minutes, and we'll be able to go racing. So it's not too much of a problem. It's not like I don't know. It's not really as long as what we had last week with 2 weeks ago with the British Grand Prix, where it was like half hour up to 45 minutes or so. But yeah, that's because of the advantage of this Hungara rings. Just a lot of places for pickup trucks and things like that to come onto the track to clear the cars. And there's no gravel traps either, I don't think. Unlike Silverstone, where you got them massive gravel traps, quite a lot of places on the track. But yeah, we're going racing in about 10 minutes time now, so that'll be good.
Yeah,
good for us.
What I am getting on the timing sheets as well, and obviously on the F1 website, because obviously we don't have team radio at the moment, it looks like Lando Norris is out. So obviously McLaren have been on radio control to the FIA to confirm that Lando Norris won't be able to come back out because they can't repair the car in time. So he will be out of this race as well. So it will be 5 cars that are out and 5 drivers that are out, as they're just showing replays of Valtteri Bottas again going into the first turn, but that's also Lando Norris out for McLaren as well. So yeah, disappointing for him as well.
Yeah, he had 2 big collisions on that first corner, and neither of them were his fault really. Bottas going into the back end of him just caused him to lose, the traction of all 4 tires onto the track, and then it was just a passenger really right into the side of Max Verstappen in that first corner. So really unfortunate for Lando, because he's had a lot of good races over the past couple of weeks, over the past couple of race weekends. Really unfortunate that he's unable to score points today. And as you mentioned earlier, Daniel Ricciardo got caught up in all that traffic as well, and he's fallen behind in the order. He's all the way down in 12th, so really disappointing there for McLaren. It's a tough ask for them now to try and score some points, but hopefully, if the track does evolve a little bit, if it does get drier, then the soft tyres will come out, and then that McLaren car should be enough for Daniel Ricciardo to get into the points at the very least.
Yeah.
But we shall see how the weather goes, because I think it'll probably be the most influential factor on today. If it stays wet, it might be difficult for Max to regain and to climb up into the podium positions today. With Carlos Sainz there in the Ferrari, And Pierre Gasly and Ricardo ahead of him. He's going to have to jump them quickly because they're not going to be pushovers on track. Sebastian Vettel as well is going to be a tough one. So it's a tough ask for Max to try and get into the podium places today. But this could be a huge advantage for Lewis, sitting first place at the moment. And, we've seen him drive excellently in wet weather over the past couple of years. We mentioned it earlier on the, I don't know if it was on coverage or if it was just between us. We mentioned about the wet race in Turkey, where he won where he ended up winning the World Championship there after winning that one. That was a fantastic drive in the wet for him. And if we get a copy of that today, then it'll be Lewis Hamilton, I think, leading the way in the Drivers' Championship as we go into the summer break.
Yeah, and I've just seen Lando Norris is on board, and so disappointing for him because that was a fantastic getaway from him. He must have been looking into turn one then thinking, look, there's only Verstappen and Hamilton in front of me. I've got a good shot here, and then he just gets hit by Valtteri Bottas and then obviously goes straight into Max Verstappen as well. So absolutely gutting for Lando Norris, but I agree. I think there's potential in this race now for teams and drivers that maybe don't get as many points in races. Williams, for example, maybe even the Hasses, if anything else happens, that we could see some interesting points and maybe an interesting podium, completely different to what we normally see as well. A couple of comments on here. Amazing one that I love. It looks like a Formula 1 2021 online lobby, and I couldn't agree more. That looked like some aggressive maneuvers that you would see on the video game on an online race as well. But watching Sebastian Vettel's on board as well, as he was like letting everybody else go past, like he knew that something was going to happen into that turn, and you just see him as everything else is going on around him, just goes around, just hits the apex perfectly and watches all the chaos around him as he takes third position on the racetrack. But I couldn't agree more. It did look like absolute chaos going into that first turn, and we did say that it might be Verstappen and Hamilton that have a bit of a collision, but Verstappen was involved, but it wasn't anything to do with him. It was, he was literally a passenger in that, and obviously Lewis Hamilton gets away unscathed in that.
Yeah, Max is very lucky to still be in this race because he got hit hard by Lando, who was a passenger himself.
Yeah.
In that, but you, as I mentioned earlier, you can't look at that first corner collision and anything more than a racing incident. Unfortunately, it'd be really harsh to penalise Bottas because you could see clearly on his onboard that he was trying to brake. He simply just didn't have the grip in order to get it done, and it just had a knock-on effect onto everyone else after that. So I don't think it'll be anything more than racing incident. Just draw on that comment there about, you said the F1 2021 online lobbies. Don't they have like incidences where they have ghost cars on like the first couple of laps to stop people from clashing into each other?
Yeah.
Imagine if you had something like that on in real Formula One, just the ghost cars going through one another as they went into the first corner just to allow all of us go. But yeah, that's literally impossible.
Bottas would have ghosted straight through everybody if that was the case.
Yeah.
He would have gone straight through. But somebody just mentioned actually in the group chat, have everyone seen Charles Leclerc's tweet? He's literally just tweeted, "Nice bowling game, so frustrating."
Wow.
Which is very interesting to that. And obviously it's like Connor said, not Bottas's fault, but that is quite a funny tweet by Charles Leclerc.
There is obvious frustrations because Charles has got the racecraft, and he's a very talented driver. To try to remember where he qualified yesterday, it's in 7th, but throughout the season we've seen him qualify in pole and near the top, and he's really getting the most out of Ferrari. It's just not a season for him, really. I think this is might be the third or the second race now he's had to retire from. After the formation lap failing, or installation lap, sorry, in at Monaco, with the car failing to go around after the collision into the wall during qualifying. But back to this one, we've got images on the broadcast now of Red Bull making some repairs.
They're buffing out
to Max Verstappen's floor, so getting the tape out, gluing all that back together.
This will buff out, is what they're saying right now. We can buff this out.
Basically, if you want to know how F1 teams save money throughout the season and still stay competitive, it's through sponsorships like duct tape and things like that, because they get it all tape sponsorships to fix their flaws.
We'll buff that out. That's fine. We can fix that. As obviously we're also seeing Sergio Perez on there as well, and I think obviously, like you said, Max Verstappen is obviously going to go back out there and try and recoup as many points as he can possibly with this now, because obviously this is only lap 3 and we've got 70 laps of this race to go. So there's obviously still time for Max Verstappen to make them places and get some solid points in this race now. But Jamie's obviously gone on and put as well, you feel Verstappen will be hungry for that second place today, and obviously you think it's realistic. Absolutely, like I said, it's only 3 laps in. We've still got a load more to do. It might be that the track dries out. I don't think it's raining at the minute. They've still got brollies around, but I don't think it's raining that much at the moment. So if the track does start to dry out, you've got the options of the medium tyre. People might go on the soft compound tyres, coming into the end of the race as well. So everything's still up in the air in terms of where the points could go now with this, in the remainder of this race. But we're still seeing onboards, obviously, from the first starts. We've got another one here of Yuki Tsunoda, started 16th and is now in 5th position. Obviously, starting a bit further back has helped them drivers, because they haven't been involved in this turn 1 incident, as everybody else in front of them just sort of collides. The ones from behind have just managed to just skirt through, which has been fantastic for them. But look, like I said, it's still up in the air, and I think second place is definitely possible for Max Verstappen come the end of this race. But Lewis Hamilton will be in a perfect mode now. He'll be a little bit worried, say, if they do another standing start, if somebody else might jump him and he might not get, say, a poor start this time around as well.
I don't think Ocon will be able to jump him.
I think Toto Wolff will tell him before he gets in the car.
Yeah, it'll be really tough for Ocon to jump him, but we're seeing the pictures now. It's just so bright there in Hungary now. The weather's really cleared up, and Max will be loving that, because it means there's potential for the track to dry out quicker, which means getting onto the soft compounds quicker. And the quicker that Max can get onto the soft compounds, the quicker, in my opinion, in that he'll be able to move up the field and try and challenge for a podium. I still think it'll be really tough. As the chat says, it could happen, because we still got plenty of laps to go, and plenty of things could happen. But the longer they stay on the inters, I think it'll be much more drained out. But looking at the weather there, Jack, it's starting to clear up, and with that sunshine coming through, the track will dry out, and eventually softs will be an option, I think, for Max, and he'll be wanting to pit, I think, as soon as possible and get off those inters so that he can really push the red car as much as it can go. But we've seen as well with the side damage and the floor damage on that Red Bull, how much is that going to play into effect? How much is that going to affect the aerodynamics of the car as it goes around these corners? Is it going to slow it down so much that he's not going to be able to challenge for a podium? There's a lot of tape there. There's a lot of damage there on that Red Bull. Don't just think it'll be a walk in the park, because all these floors and side pods and things like that, they all have a key component to play in terms of the aerodynamics of the car and how much downforce comes into play of the car when it goes around corners and things like that.
I'm just seeing all
how
that
quick it's able
tape.
to slow down. Yeah, you just see it. It's essentially, it's gone from like a dark blue to a silver with all that.
It's
tape
turning into a 2019 Mercedes.
Yeah, although I'm pretty certain Red Bull would love to have that car and get it around that track as quick as possible, if it was that. But yeah, as I just said, real opportunities here today for some of the lower teams to score some big points. If AlphaTauri is able to get 2 cars into the points today, that'll be huge for them.
Yeah.
If Williams is able to get points today, that'll be huge for them. If Alfa Romeo is able to get points today, that'll be huge for them. If Haas, even in this circumstance right now, are able to get points today, that'll be huge for them.
Yeah, I was going to mention as well, like say the drivers in question. Vettel's in a good position in 3rd place at the moment. Sainz in 4th place is in a great position now after the issues he had in qualifying. Fernando Alonso, could we see Fernando Alonso's first podium? For is it since 2012 that he was last on the podium? I think in a Formula One race. Could we see that today? He's in 7th place, but like we said, if maybe he gets that opportunity to go on the dry compound tyres, going into the later part of this race, could we see Fernando Alonso on his first podium for all them years from 2012 onwards. So that could be another interesting prospect to look at as well. So a lot of drivers and a lot of teams, like Conor's mentioned, are sitting pretty at the moment in a position that they're not normally at going into 3 laps into a race. So yeah, this could be a really interesting. I'm just going to go through what Jamie's putting in the chat as well. So thanks, Jamie, for putting some more information on there. Perez not happy at all. You can tell from his interview that he really wants to help Verstappen win the World Championship. Anyone else feel like the crash was Norris's fault? He braked quite early. I mean, I can see maybe that point of view, but I think also Valtteri Bottas, like you said, there was no braking in that. He just went straight into the back of it. He might be that he didn't think Norris was maybe going to brake that early, but still, he just looked like he didn't have any control at all on that brake pedal that he was using.
Plus, you can't fault Lando Norris for braking early in wet weather with cars in front of him and the speed that they're going to the corner. Because as we mentioned, with Bottas, he had no grip. So what do you think the situation is for Lando? It's probably very similar. He probably didn't have any grip. He probably braked for about a second and then didn't get any grip until we saw the motion of the car stop. And that was the same for Bottas, and it's probably the same for all of them. And that's why so many of them collided with one another, just misjudged the traction on the track for the tires, and braking into the first corner, just nothing there for them to grab onto to slow the car down. But as we can see on the track now, there's a lot of dry spots.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, as you see that, yeah.
So intermediates might not be around for much longer. Could be 1 or 2 laps, and that could very well be it. We'll have to wait and see. But it'll be interesting to see. I think probably because of the condition of the track, because it's drying out a little bit, but there's still a few wet patches here and there, and it depends on what the grid looks like as well. Yeah. But I think it will be a standing start for now. And usually after red flags, we've seen a lot of standing starts after red flags as well. Race control, standing start. Yeah, so confirmed there from the FIA, it'll be a standing start. So I think before we go into the standing start, Jack, probably once more on the grid order, just so that everyone knows how things are going to line up.
Absolutely. So Lewis Hamilton is still leading this race after the Turn 1 incidents. A lot of the drivers in and around him didn't obviously will be coming out for this next part of this next standing start, but Lewis Hamilton is one of them that sort of managed to avoid any of the collisions that took place. Esteban Ocon is sitting in a fantastic second position with Sebastian Vettel and Aston Martin in third. Carlos Sainz fourth. Great positioning considering where he was starting in qualifying, made up 10 places. Yuki Tsunoda in fifth. Latifi for Williams in sixth position. Fernando Alonso seventh. George Russell also in eighth. So they're both Williams drivers, sixth and eighth at the moment. Kimi Raikkonen, great start as well for him in ninth. Mick Schumacher in the Haas currently in 10th position. He also made up 10 places. Pierre Gasly is 11th. Daniel Ricciardo 12th. Max Verstappen at the moment is sitting in 13th. Nikita Mazepin is 14th. It says Lando Norris is 15th, but we know he is out at the race now because McLaren haven't been able to get that car fixed. And of course, Giovinazzi at the moment we still believe is starting this race. I'm not sure if he's still on their medium compound tyres though, so that'll be an interesting point.
A lot of cars are coming into the pits here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah.
Lewis stayed out. He's still in the inters, but everyone else, a lot of cars are coming into the pits to change onto the mediums.
So this could be interesting then if other drivers are all coming into the pits and Lewis Hamilton has stayed out on the intermediate tyres. I'll just go out and just say Valtteri Bottas, Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez and Lando Norris are out of this race, and we're only on lap 3 out of 70 as we see all the cars coming in. So we've got there Esteban Ocon on a medium set, and Lewis Hamilton is sitting on the grid, and he's going to have to wait a long time for these drivers now. Is he starting on his own? The lights are going out.
Yeah, started on his own as all the cars in the pit lane.
I've never seen that before.
Someone's jumped someone in the pit lane entry there. I think it was George Russell. George Russell jumped Esteban Ocon going out of the pits.
What is going on here? Hamilton is basically doing his own race here. Are we George Russell in second place now? What is going on? What is going on in this race?
Is this the Shakira Grand Prix? What's going on? Why is George in second place?
Look at the medical cars waiting for the cars to come past. He's normally the last one in. What is going on in this race? So we have Lewis Hamilton on the intermediate tyres. He's the only one out of all of them now who's on the inters. So this could be a very interesting strategy from Mercedes, considering he's the only one out there now on that intermediate compound tyre. George Russell who we might see his teammate next season, is in second place in that Williams. We've got Esteban Ocon in third, Vettel's in fourth, Latifi's in fifth. Christ, we've got Tsunoda in sixth, Sainz seventh, Alonso eighth, Raikkonen in ninth, and Daniel Ricciardo 10th. Max Verstappen is in 12th position. But like I've just mentioned, all these are on the medium compound tyre, as we see Lewis Hamilton on the radio, probably thinking, what the hell am I doing? The only guy on the intermediate. But Connor, have you ever seen that one guy doing the race start on his own?
No. I was trying to.
Has Russell got an issue?
I think he might have an issue, or he might have been penalised for overtaking.
Maybe is he letting people go so he doesn't get a penalty? Or?
Yeah, Lewis is coming in onto the medium tyres. Quick change from Mercedes, and he's off down the pit lane.
Why have they really screwed this up? Then why didn't they do that when everybody else did that?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, he comes out behind Max Verstappen, literally at the back. So was that a mistake from?
What is going on here?
You can't drag the mediums out until the end of the race. Not for 65 laps, I don't think. So.
Well. Have we seen a real issue there for Mercedes? Because it's not like he's been out there a little bit longer, and we've seen maybe them lose some tyre wear from that. Mercedes are literally. He's gone from 1st to 14th now because he was the only one that had that issue. That is really strange. But obviously George Russell's gone down to 7th now, so it'll be interesting to see that replay maybe of what happened in the pit lane when everybody was literally just sitting there waiting for Lewis Hamilton to start the race. But Hamilton's on team radio again. I haven't got the information on that, so if anybody's watching the chat and picking up the radio, let us know what he's obviously saying on there. That would be much appreciated as well. But Esteban Ocon currently leads this race with Sebastian Vettel second, and oh my God, Nicholas Latifi is in third place at the minute.
Wow. Just wow. I don't know. We're 5 laps in, and it feels like we've already had quite a race. Not too sure what else could happen in this race to make it even more eventful and exciting.
Mazepin leading, maybe? I mean,
maybe. But yeah, I suppose now we wait for the next pit stops for when these guys come off the mediums, because remember as well, they've raced on 2 different compounds now for this race. Yeah. They've been on the inters, and they've been on the intermediates. On the mediums. And unfortunately, Jack, you won't get your wish of Nikita Mazepin leading the race, because he's had to pit and he's retired due to a collision with. I think it was.
Who's he crashed into in the pit
lane? It was an Alfa Romeo.
Oh, well. I mean, is that not an unsafe release from Alfa Romeo there? I mean, I know it's absolute chaos, but there's Gunter. I mean, that's going to be on the Netflix documentary, I'm sure.
All of this is on the Netflix documentary. This is
2 episodes worth.
This might be a 2-parter. This might be a 2-part episode.
They're licking their lips in the Netflix studios right now.
Yeah, and they say incident with George Russell overtaking and going out of the pits. No investigation required.
And is that because he's maybe given the places up, Connor? Do you think?
I think so. I think that was it. Because we've not seen him pit again, so there's no car mechanical problem or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the side pod to get cleared out that's stopping the circulation on the car. So I think he just took a self-imposed penalty and gave the places back to people. But yeah, Esteban Ocon leading this charge. Absolute scenes. Daniel Ricciardo, though, had a nice, strong restart up to 9th. So that's good by him. But other than that, everyone else is pretty much in the same spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, what we're also seeing now already with this is that we're seeing that gap between Vettel and Latifi. Vettel's 1.4 seconds behind Esteban Ocon, but Latifi's around about 7.5 seconds behind the pair of them. So you can already see that gap from 2nd to 3rd taking place. So the rest of them behind Latifi, it's going to get further away from Ocon and Vettel at this point.
It feels like we're getting a bit of a train going, really. And it's just Latifi leading this train, and Vettel and Ocon have got their own race going on here, which could be huge for them in terms of getting some quality points today, if they're able to build up a sizable gap before the next pit stop, and to really take advantage of all the conditions that have taken place, and get some good points in order. But No, we've had 6 cars retire now. How many races has it been since we've had 6 cars retires? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I can remember there was a race one year where it was the first race in Australia, and all of them were just completely like it was like they'd never done any testing before. They were all just sort of breaking down. I can't remember what year that was, but that was, I think, the last time maybe we've had so many cars retire from a race. I think Joe's obviously asked what happened to Mazepin. He had a collision as they were all diving into the pit stops. I think Schumacher was in there as well, so Haas were trying to do a double stop, but at the same time as Mazepin coming in, one of the Alfa Romeos was coming out at the same time and literally just knocked his front right wheel. So yeah, he was never going to get back out on the track as well. So that's why Nikita Mazepin has come out. Unsafe release. Yeah, he hit Kimi, so obviously Grapes answered the question for him. So it was Kimi Raikkonen that came out of the pits for that time. But I mean, Connor, we go back to what's happened here with Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. They were sitting pretty in first place. They looked very comfortable. Obviously weren't in any of the issues on the first lap compared to say Max Verstappen, his rival. But have they messed this up now? Because they obviously pitted a lap after everybody else, and they're now sitting at the back on this, like you said, this train behind Nicholas Latifi.
It'll be very difficult now, I think, for Lewis to try and win this race. It's still very much possible, but you got to remember there's more than just midfield cars ahead of him. There's Verstappen. He's a couple of places ahead of him now, so he'll be looking at strategies in order to try and stretch out these medium tires for as much as possible. You got the experienced race winners of the past like Alonso and Ricciardo and Vettel in there too. They'll all be thinking, what strategies can we employ in order to try and score maximum points today, thanks to what's happened over the last couple of laps. And here we go. Lewis looking to challenge on Giovinazzi, trying to get past him right up to the end of his car, right up near the back of his car. Just can't get past him in these sectors. Really close, really tight corners, so very difficult to get past.
And we haven't had DRS activated yet as well, so it like I said, it is very much, they're all going to be, Hungary's never been a track that you have so many opportunities to make them overtaking maneuvers, which again, why is a strange decision for Mercedes to not pit at exactly the same time. He would have been, I think, a few, I mean, obviously the safety car was there, but he still, unless they thought because of the traffic that was coming in behind Lewis Hamilton, that they would have struggled maybe to get back out on track. But I'm just it's a very strange decision, because you knew if that you were the only person that was going to do that you would be stone dead last as everybody else came round on that lap before. So yeah, very strange decision. Jamie's gone on the chat saying it sounds like on the team radio that Hamilton's giving up. I'm pretty sure he won't give up, because he always says that never give up thing that he's always striving towards. So I don't think he would, but yeah, I think he might be questioning the decision that Mercedes made for this. But Esteban Ocon is still leading on lap 10 now out of 70 for this Hungarian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel is about 1.3 seconds behind him, so still keeping pretty close. Latifi is about 8 seconds behind us. We see Lewis Hamilton make a move on the Italian Jesus, so he's now up to 13th position. With that fastest lap is Lewis Hamilton. So slowly
just want to mention this, Jack, because since the race start, Max has not got past Mick Schumacher in the Haas.
Yeah. And
that is just an example of how difficult it is to overtake around this circuit, because you would think on any day, in any scenario, 9 times out of 10, even maybe 10 out of 10, if you put the Haas and the Red Bull against one another, Red Bull's going to come out on top.
Yeah.
And we're
the floor
7 laps into the restart now, and that Red Bull's not got past the Haas. And we mentioned about the floor damage. We mentioned about the collision into the side of the car and how that can affect the aerodynamics. I just wonder if that's played a big part into Max's struggles here, because Lewis is starting to catch up to him. He's taken on Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi's got a 10-second penalty now for speeding in the pit lane, which is a massive driver error from him. But yeah, Lewis has got past Giovinazzi. He's on the charge now on Gasly, and then it's Max after that. If Max sees Lewis in his rear view mirrors in the next couple of laps and he's not got past Mick, he's going to be furious. He's going to be frustrated because of he's doing all he can with the car, and it's damage to the car maybe too much for him to challenge anymore. in this race.
The one thing I would say is that I think it will be a bit more difficult, say, for Lewis Hamilton to get past the AlphaTauri than it would have been the Alfa Romeo. And obviously Pierre Gasly's been on stellar form over this course of this season as well. So I think that might be a tougher challenge for Lewis Hamilton to overtake Gasly. But I agree. I think Jamie put in the chat a little bit earlier that we're seeing a Schumacher ahead of a Verstappen. It's like going back a few years with Michael and Jos Verstappen. So he's really struggling to get past Mick Schumacher at the minute. Is it that floor damage? Mick Schumacher, I think, still has DRS possibly as well from Daniel Ricciardo, so that's obviously not helping the Red Bull of Verstappen to get past as well. But they're showing the footage of Ocon and Vettel, and they're just in a league of their own at the moment, aren't they? It's completely like extending that gap to Latifi at 8 seconds.
It reminds me of it reminds me of Monza with Gasly and Sainz and I think Perez was up there on that day, maybe. I can't remember who was in third on that day, but I remember in the last couple of laps, it was just between Gasly and Sainz for the race win. I wonder if we're going to get a repeat of that today. Obviously, still quite a long way to go, but to see either Ocon get his first ever race win in Formula One or to see Sebastian Vettel at the top of the podium once more would be a great sight for Formula One fans.
Absolutely. And Jamie's pulling in another stellar stat here I've got on the chat here. It says the last time Alpine led an F1 Grand Prix was in 2013 at the US Grand Prix when they were known as Lotus, and Romain Grosjean was driving for them at that point. Great stat, Jamie. If you've got any more, keep them throwing in. I'm loving the stats that are throwing on. But yeah, great drive so far for Esteban Ocon. Lewis Hamilton coming on the team radio saying this is ridiculous. So he is clearly not happy. So I feel like a very angry Lewis Hamilton will be appearing in the post-race interviews, that is for sure. Giovinazzi has just come into the pits, I think. So I don't know if he's made a tyre change. Plus, he's got that 10-second stop-and-go penalty. So he's getting that out the way as it stands as well. So obviously, Max Verstappen is still behind Mick Schumacher. Schumacher doesn't have DRS from Daniel Ricciardo anymore. So Verstappen should be getting that DRS and should be able to get past him, but it still isn't the case for him, and Hamilton is still behind Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, even as you mentioned with these DRS zones, bear in mind though, a lot of the cars don't have their back wings open up, so I'm not too sure if it is active or not yet. But I'll be surprised if it wasn't. It is open because Verstappen's got his wings open, and so does Gasly and Hamilton. So why they're not able to get past this Haas is remarkable to me, absolutely remarkable, because we know the Haas is not making vast improvements to their car throughout the year because they're saving money for next year. So how Max has been stuck behind Schumacher for this long is I think it's got, if it's nothing else other than the floor, then that just shows how big of a role the floor plays for these Formula One cars.
Absolutely.
And why it's so important to keep it intact.
And I tell you what, Gasly's having an absolute whale of a time here battling Lewis Hamilton. I bet he's like, finally, I've actually got some competition going on here. I'm absolutely loving, fighting the 7-time world champion, even if it is for 13th place. Or 12th place, sorry, should I say. But great battling here I'm seeing from Pierre Gasly defending hard against Lewis Hamilton. And obviously Max not like that. Pierre Gasly being an ex-teammate of Max Verstappen, just keeping Lewis Hamilton behind because he himself is unable to get past Mick Schumacher still, which, like you said, is absolutely crazy because we know, like you said, Haas are making no upgrade changes this year. The car they've got is the car they started with in Bahrain. Obviously, they're looking for 2022 onwards. But yeah, he's a little bit closer this time around, is Max Verstappen. So maybe he might get that. But whether Haas have just programmed it to be faster on the straights, I don't know. But this should be, I think, maybe an overtake maneuver from Max Verstappen. I'll let you see, Connor, if you've got it.
Oh, yes. Mick pushed Max right to the side. Max tried to go around the outside, but Mick really pushed him around the outside. But turn two, it looks as though Max might be able to. Oh, contact between the Red Bull and the Haas. Nothing too significant though, to push any of them off the track. But there was definite wheel touch in there between the Red Bull and the Haas. But Max has got the job done, and he's ahead of Mick Schumacher. Lewis has gone off the track here, trying to push around Gasly. So there's a lot of lost time there for Lewis. So. The pressure's being felt there. Lewis must have seen that just ahead of him. I was just
about to say it. Do you think Lewis has seen Verstappen get past Mick Schumacher, knowing now that he's really got to put the hammer down?
Yeah. So nice dive bomb by Max. Just couldn't get the corner taken, and Mick forced him off the track there.
Great defending.
so he had to go around to turn 2 and just breezed it past him in turn 2. And since turn 3 goes from right to left with turn 2 to turn 3, Max had the advantage on the inside of turn 3 and just forced his way through and had a bit of contact there with the Haas as he was going through. I think it was just might have been like a touch to say, hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me when I'm coming past you. I'm in a quicker car.
Absolutely. But I don't know what Verstappen put on the team radio then, whether he was moaning about Mick Schumacher or not, but I have to say that was great defending, considering he's in the Haas, and obviously Verstappen is in a damaged Red Bull, but still, great defending and great driving from Mick Schumacher, as Jamie's mentioned in the chat as well. Great job, as Kimi Raikkonen gets a 10, it doesn't say 10-second penalty for that unsafe release, which we saw against Nikita Mazepin as well, as we see Pierre Gasly now getting past Mick Schumacher. So this will be interesting now. So Pierre Gasly's got past Mick Schumacher. How long will it take for Lewis Hamilton? Can Mick pull off some great defending manoeuvres against Lewis Hamilton?
Haas has to really think about this. They have to really think about how long do they want to be challenging, the Red Bull, the AlphaTauri and the Mercedes, because they shouldn't be racing against them. As much as they want to be, thinking ahead and thinking, oh, we could really challenge these guys today because there's not many overtaking opportunities. It could really be detrimental for them in terms of the tires and things like that as they go on throughout the race. If there comes further retirements, there could be an opportunity here for Mick to try and score some points. So he has to think about that. He has to think, how long does he want to challenge these cars? But if it's similar situation to what we had with Max and this just not challenging them whatsoever in the opening laps, then you have to go for it. But Lewis here already up near the gearbox of the Haas going down the main straight. Another great battle here between Mick and another car on the track, but Lewis just takes it like a breeze and has gone past him into turn 1, and that's job done for Lewis, and he's on now towards Gasly and Max Verstappen. And we've got, I think this is Kimi Raikkonen serving his time penalty in the pits. Problems with the front left, I think it was for him.
So he's on the hard tires.
Yeah, but not a great day at all for Alfa Romeo so far. But with Raikkonen going on the hard tires, could be an opportunity here to try and take it to the end of the race and score some points. If if we're expecting everyone to pit at least once more if they're not on the hard tires already. Because we don't think the medium compound will last until the end of the race. But at the moment, we've still got Ocon in first, Vettel in second, just behind him. And then we've got that massive gap to Nicholas Latifi. And how big is that gap? Well, Ocon and Vettel went around the corner of turn 1, and we're waiting about 3 seconds for Latifi to come around the final corner. That's how big the gap is. It's about 8 seconds, maybe even longer than that.
But he's still pretty good against the likes of Ferrari and AlphaTauri behind him. He's not really having any defensive issues with them either. So great job from the Williams team with obviously Russell in 7th place as well. Just going back to Mick Schumacher, I feel like Gunter was on the radio going, try and hold these two up as much as possible because we're getting great sponsorship time here. They don't normally get a lot of viewing in a race, so please just hold them up as much as possible. We're actually getting some good airtime.
Yeah, they must have been thinking, let's take the most of this broadcast time.
Exactly.
And it's just showing the slow stop for Raikkonen. Even with the 10 seconds on, it was 7 seconds pit because of the
front left.
Front left wouldn't go on. But as a result of that, now we've got Lewis and Gasly and Verstappen right on those points edges now because of the two Alfa Romeos pit. So everyone's gone up a couple of places. Lewis on the radio, I don't really know what to say, guys. I can't get close to people. Is this usual Lewis talk? Underplaying it.
Yeah.
And then he's going to charge forward. He likes to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's absolutely fine for Lewis and he's just waiting for someone to pit, just to try and get an advantage and then have a really good in-lap.
Vettel looks closer, Connor.
Himself. Yeah, it's getting a bit closer between Ocon and Vettel now as we go through the chicanes.
Is Vettel smelling this old school Red Bull days? Is he smelling a win here, Connor?
I think He's definitely smelling a podium. That'll be something. But whether or not he can get that win, still got a long way to go. But, we've seen this Aston Martin perform well so far this season. We saw it perform well in Azerbaijan when Vettel got his podium. So the potential is there for Vettel. And, we've seen Ocon perform well over the past 12 months, with the podium, as we mentioned, in Bahrain. And the Alpine car has actually been decent over the past couple of weeks too. So it's all to play for. It's all to play for between these two. And the gap's ever growing between Vettel and Latifi, 11 seconds now. And then there's just a train behind him all the way down to Hamilton. That's pretty much the scenario that we've got going on here. And then Mick, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in their own little race, I think, don't really expect. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as though Alfa Romeo's been able to take advantage of the situation. Although it might be different come near the end of the race for Raikkonen because he's on the hards.
Yeah.
Not too sure what tyre compound Giovinazzi's on.
I think he's still on the medium tyres that he had on previous. Although he did come back in again, didn't he, for that 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Speeding.
Yeah. F1.com saying he's on mediums, so he may have to pit again. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, exciting race so far, Jack.
I was gonna say I'm loving. I love these races when obviously we have, because it always worries me when you get because when we do the thumbnails, and obviously Jamie kindly did the thumbnail this weekend, we always get it where the majority of the time we have Verstappen, Bottas, or Hamilton that we create in terms of these thumbnails because that's the top three. So I love these races when we have a race when it could be somebody completely different, and there's three drivers here, 1, 2, 3, that are never normally we would say on the podiums. Obviously Sebastian Vettel's had 53 career race wins in Formula 1, and he's obviously still bearing down on Esteban Ocon here, but it's not like we've seen Sebastian Vettel do this over the last few years, even at Ferrari. It's been a pretty sporadic over the last final few years for him at the Scuderia team, so it's just great to see a completely different lineup that is 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Obviously, like I said, Latifi's doing an absolute stellar job just because
Lewis in the pits.
Right.
And it is hard tyres for Lewis. So Lewis is going to the end of the race, most likely on these hard tyres.
Okay.
Big, clean pit stop, 2.4 seconds. He's out. He's going to be behind Mick. Is Raikkonen going to take him before he exits the pits? He's not down the main straight. So Lewis comes out in 12th again on the hard tyres. So Lewis going to the end of the race on these hard tyres. What do you do now if you're Max Verstappen? Do you challenge this and go on hard tyres yourself, or do you stick out there for a little bit longer and see how the race develops?
Yeah, I can see team radio coming out for them. So whether they're letting Max Verstappen know that Hamilton's come in for them hard compound tyres, it's a difficult one because it's not like he's very far up the road either. He's only in 9th position and still behind Daniel Ricciardo at the moment. So it could be the case that maybe Verstappen comes in on the next lap and puts them hard tyres on just to make sure he's in the same sort of area as Lewis Hamilton is, and sort of they're working their way up together maybe to make sure that they're pretty close in terms of the points, because we have seen like in 2019 obviously that Hamilton bared down on Max Verstappen coming to the end of that race with the strategy they have. It could be that maybe Red Bull wait and try and do that again if Hamilton goes to the end on them hard tyres. It could be that maybe Verstappen goes in a little bit later and sort of jumps in with the grip.
Verstappen's in the pits.
Right,
Verstappen's
so
in the
we
pits.
know what he's doing.
Ricciardo's ahead of him in the pits as well. But yeah, hard tyres for Verstappen as well. Clean pit stop by Red Bull there. And Ricciardo, though, however, has managed to pit and get out ahead of Max Verstappen. So Ricciardo is ahead of him on the hard tyres. Crucially, though, it looks as though, Max Verstappen's been jumped by Lewis Hamilton as he's pitted. And Lewis Hamilton's managed to get a jump on Ricciardo as well. So only 1 lap older tyres for Lewis Hamilton, but he's got the jump on Max Verstappen. So it's worked. The pit strategy has worked for Mercedes, even though it was long-winded and we thought they may struggle with the Inters after we had the strange scenario of Lewis being the only one on the grid for the standing start after the red flag. But a crucial moment in this race, Jack, Max Verstappen's been jumped by Lewis as he's gone into his pit stop.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, we don't know how much issues Max Verstappen is having with that floor damage. So probably the last thing he wanted was knowing the fact that Lewis Hamilton is ahead of him as well. If he was behind him, he might still be okay. Might have a bit of issue with traffic, but to still only be behind him, and he's obviously got a McLaren in between him as well of Daniel Ricciardo. So yeah, not great in terms of the pit strategy in the end for Red Bull as well. Mercedes have managed to decide, let's just put the hard compound tyres on. Everyone else around us will have to react to this, and obviously they've got it right because Red Bull have reacted, but it hasn't been enough. I don't know what the time was Hamilton did as he went round on them hard compound tyres, but it must have been a stellar lap to make sure he was ahead of not only Max Verstappen but Daniel Ricciardo as well.
Yeah, such a crucial outlap for Hamilton, just knowing that there's a potential that Verstappen could pit as a reaction to his pit. So to be able to get round the circuit and lap or overtake, Verstappen in time as he came out of the pits, just shows how narrow the margins were for that outlap for Lewis, and it just demonstrates why he's one of the best, if not the best, Formula One driver of all time, because he's able to take these scenarios and spin them into his own advantage, even in a circumstance where he's starting on the grid on his own on the inters and everyone else has gone on to mediums. Even in those situations there, he's able to get ahead of his rivals, and now everyone ahead of him, as far as I'm aware, is on mediums and hasn't pitted yet. Tsunoda is the first to pit out of those lots, so Tsunoda's coming in now, and he's going to be on the hard tyres as well. So let's see where Tsunoda comes out here, if it's going to be behind Lewis or ahead of him. The pit's done, he comes out now, falling to 7th. It was a slow pit stop. One of the mechanics for AlphaTauri is annoyed. But yeah, Tsunoda has come out, and it's a clean pit stop, and he's come out in 7th at the moment. So there's a very strong pit stop there for Tsunoda. He was in 4th, I think. So he's only fallen down to 7th there, and he's on hard tyres, so potentially could go to the end of the race on these.
Yeah, Sainz is on team radio as well. Possibility that Ferrari, I can see the mechanics out there. I don't know whether maybe they were doing a sort of like a dummy maneuver, thinking they were going to come out. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think this could be the time now where maybe some of the other teams sort of pounce on that. I mean, in terms of Vettel and Ocon, I think any time that Latifi stays out and keeps that gap to be extended, they might stay out a little bit longer, because they might be able to get maybe a 21, 22 second mark, so they might be able to have a free pit stop when they make that change for the hard compound tyres.
They'll be looking at Tsunoda, I think. They'll be looking at Tsunoda and looking at his time the most. 37 seconds behind the race leader. If that time starts to decrease and go to 35, 30, that's when I think they'll pit, because we've got to take into account the changing of the tyres in the box and the time it takes to... Latifi's in now. So, yeah, they'll wait for Tsunoda's time to go down a little bit, I think, before pitting, because they're both neck and neck.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see who pits first, who takes on the challenge first. But I think they'll be watching Tsunoda's time the most to see how that changes over the next few laps between their own tyres as well on the as they start to lose some wear and to age a little bit. But Lewis, a 1:21 quickest lap of the race so far.
Yeah, and he's just got past Mick Schumacher, but crucially for Latifi and Williams, he was ahead after his pit stop of Lewis Hamilton, so he had enough of a gap. Even though he was far behind Vettel and Ocon, he's had enough of a gap to come out and still be ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And to be honest, that Williams has looked pretty good on the straights, because he's managed to keep the likes of Tsunoda and Sainz and Alonso behind him. So that might be another test for Lewis Hamilton. Can he get past that Mercedes power of the Williams on that straight line speed?
We've seen the Williams really improve throughout the season. You know, I think the most significant race for where I noticed the improvements was in Austria when Russell had that really good performance. Russell's been great in qualifying, just really unfortunate for both cars yesterday, as neither of them got out of Q1. But they've really taken advantage of the circumstances today, and they're making the most of it now, with both being on hard tyres, potential to go to the end of the race. I would expect now at least one of them to score points. Maybe both of them is in the realms of possibility. But as long as Verstappen and Ricciardo are in the mix, I think it'll be really tough to say that both Williams cars will be in the points.
Yeah.
But we'll see. At the moment, Verstappen's still all lock up by Verstappen going into turn one, so that's a loss of time there on Ricciardo. But yeah, as things stand, Verstappen's still behind Ricciardo, and I wonder how they feel as well with the unit changes as well after that collision. How much damage has been done to that, if any, and obviously the floor damage coming into play as well. It's been a tough race, I think, for Max, because he's not really put a foot wrong. It's just a lot of things have happened around him that's made that's compromised his race a little bit, which is a bit unfortunate for him and the overall drivers' championship too.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at, in terms of the top two, then in terms of Ocon and Vettel, we've just seen in the chat here, Joe's put if Seb pits before Ocon, I think Seb might, could look at getting the win. If you're Alpine and you're Aston Martin, which one of you, who's making the jump first between them two? Then do you think it would be Vettel? See if we can get the jump on Ocon being in the lead, or?
I'm not too sure because I don't think it's just between those two. I think they're looking behind as well to Gasly.
The Sainz is close as well,
and Sainz as well. But ultimately, I think they're looking at Tsunoda's time. Both cars are just looking at Tsunoda's time because he's the nearest one to them on hard tires that could potentially go to the end of the race, and they're looking at his time. And if that time starts to decrease a little bit, then if he closes the gap to like 30 seconds or so, then that's when one of them will pit. And it's just I really couldn't say who's gonna pit first between the two. I think it's just a flip of the coin because they're both right next to each other on track. It's only like a second or so between them. But Ocon's been leading the charge, and you would think it's just reactionary. If it'll get to a point where if Vettel's been told to pit, but Ocon pits as well, then Vettel probably will disobey and stay out and try and get a good outlap.
Do the opposite.
Good inlap.
Yeah.
Do the opposite to the other. And just try and get a good inlap before pitting himself. But Lewis is on the charge now on the Williams behind Latifi, who's pitted as well ahead of him, and he's taken him cleanly going into turn one. So the Mercedes raw power is starting to show. So maybe it's not Tsunoda that they need to be worried about anymore. Maybe it's Lewis that they need to look at his time and decide, okay, once Lewis gets to that 30 range, we need to start thinking about pitting in order to try and stay ahead on these hard tires. So, because Alonso's still got a pit, Vettel's still got a pit, Sainz has still got a pit, Gasly's still got a pit, because they're all on the medium tires, and it's unlikely to go to the end.
Yeah, and I think Vettel's maybe backed off a little bit now. It's 1.6 seconds in and around that the gap is now. So maybe he said, well, okay, the charge, I think, on the medium compound tyre is done. I've tried to get past him, had DRS a couple of times, haven't been able to get past Esteban Ocon. So maybe we just wait now, see what happens in terms of the pit strategies now. Maybe we make the first move, see what happens then the next lap round when Alpine decide to cover that. So I think this could be an interesting time now in terms of, like you said, the top five now still haven't pitted compared to the rest who are now on the hard compound tyre. That does look like the fastest compound at the moment, and like the likes of Hamilton and Ricciardo, Verstappen are looking a little bit faster than what they were on that medium set of tyres. So yeah, this could be an interesting phase of the Grand Prix now as we're on lap 28 of 70. Lewis Hamilton is about 20 seconds behind Fernando Alonso, so there's still obviously time for the likes of them up Alonso, Sainz, Vettel, Ocon to pit and still be ahead of Lewis Hamilton. But yeah, this could be an interesting phase of the race as we head into it now.
Yeah, got Ocon and Vettel. Just Vettel, the gap, as you mentioned, it is opening up now. I think, yeah, just not aggressive driving anymore from Vettel to try and keep chase with Ocon. Maybe either looking to preserve it or to pit at some point soon. Just testing the waters, see where he would come out, running a few scenarios as to where he would come out. But Ocon's still pushing hard on these medium tyres. And I suppose the scenario that they might throw out is, well, if we've been able to stretch the mediums out to, lap 35, 40, that kind of region, stretch out for another 10 laps. Could they go medium and really do that strategy?
Yeah.
And test out that, because maybe that is a scenario for him. But because Tsunoda's time's not decreased, he's still on 36, 37 mark, and that's the time he's been since he's pitted. But Lewis is now right on his tail in DRS zone as well. So the next few laps, we could see the Mercedes overtake Tsunoda. And that'll be the new benchmarker, because we know that Mercedes is going to close up the gap. So maybe they're waiting for that moment. Maybe they're waiting for Lewis to get the jump on Tsunoda in order to pit, because they know the back marker is there for where they would come out. They would come out ahead of Lewis on fresher tires, and that might be enough for either one of them to score a podium, because I think Lewis, with the hard tires, with the way that he's been driving today, it'll be surprising now if he doesn't get a podium, because he's just been so strong on those hard tires ever since he pitted.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we're talking about Lewis Hamilton now up to 7th place. His rival Max Verstappen still behind Daniel Ricciardo, who himself is still behind George Russell, and who himself is still behind Mick Schumacher and Nicholas Latifi. So really struggling is Daniel Ricciardo. I thought him himself would have made some moves in that McLaren, being a little bit maybe faster than the Williams and the Hasses, to maybe be behind Lewis Hamilton. But Daniel Ricciardo struggling to get past George Russell, which means then that Verstappen, with his floor damage, is him himself having issues trying to get past Daniel Ricciardo as well. So not a great race so far really for Max Verstappen. Obviously had that collision with Norris and obviously Bottas on the first lap. Tried to repair it as much as possible, did the mechanics during the red flag, but you can probably see in terms of the lap times that he is not, you know, where the Red Bull would normally be, and stuck in and around that 12th position at the moment.
Yeah, gap between Ocon and Vettel's 2 seconds now, so it's increasing. Nothing's really changed between Tsunoda and Lewis, although Lewis is very much at the back of Tsunoda's car. So next DRS zone, that could be it. It could be Lewis overtaking him and jumping into 6th position. And maybe that will be the trigger for Ocon and Vettel to pit, knowing that Lewis is on the charge now between Lewis and everyone else that's not pitted yet. So they don't want to be caught in that train. They don't want to be caught in that train of everyone pitting and getting caught in the pit lane or getting caught in traffic coming out. They want to make sure that they're ahead of this.
Yeah,
they're ahead of Tsunoda, and maybe even ahead of Lewis. And it's just flashed up there. The one-stop strategy for the mediums is on. So maybe this is the time now we see Ocon and Vettel pit in order to try and take advantage of that. It is Gasly coming into the pits now on the mediums, and he's on the hard tires, coming out on the hard tires for Gasly. He's fallen into 8th. Is he going to come out ahead of Mick? He is going to come out ahead of Mick Schumacher. So that's the difference now. That's a huge gap between 6th and 10th, essentially. Yeah. That's a huge gap.
AlphaTauri looking stronger compared to their sister team at the moment of Red Bull. You'd think it would be the other way around. We all know that obviously Sergio Perez had issues at the start. Lewis Hamilton bearing down on Yuki Tsunoda again, but because of the tight circuit that is the Hungaroring, there are very less, should I say, overtaking places on the circuit compared to the likes of the Silverstone or maybe Baku, for example, where you've got that main straight. There isn't much of overtaking opportunity here at the Hungaroring for the Hungarian Grand Prix. But as we're seeing on lap 32 now of 70, Esteban Ocon still leading on their medium compound tyres. Sebastian Vettel just over 2 seconds behind him. Carlos Sainz has clawed some time back, so he's only 10 seconds behind the top 2 now as well. Fernando Alonso keeping with Sainz about 3.5 seconds behind him. Yuki Tsunoda is the first guy on the hard compound tyre. Lewis Hamilton is in 6th with that fastest lap at the moment. Nicholas Latifi 7th, Gasly 8th, Mick Schumacher in 9th, George Russell 10th, Ricciardo 11th, Verstappen 12th, Raikkonen 13th, with Giovinazzi also on a medium compound tyre at the back of the grid in 14th at the moment. But yeah, interesting stuff, because we're also still seeing Lewis Hamilton still trying to get that overtaking manoeuvre done with DRS against Yuki Tsunoda. But like I said, that AlphaTauri is a very strong car this year, so it is probably his most competitive overtake he's had to do so far in this race.
Yeah, and it's showing images now of George Russell trying to take on Mick Schumacher. I just had a little glimpse, because I got the volume on very low. A little scream of Crofty cheering on George Russell as he tried to take over Mick Schumacher into 9th position. But right behind those two is still Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. We've already talked about Max Verstappen's damage. I wonder how much damage has Daniel Ricciardo got, because it's surprising to see the McLaren behind the Williams and the Haas, even though we have said that it's difficult to overtake on the circuit. But as we say, it's difficult to overtake. Lewis has overtaken Tsunoda just before the end of Sector 2, I think. So a good overtake there from Lewis, and that might be the trigger now for Ocon and Vettel to start thinking about pitting.
I was going to say, did he squeeze Tsunoda a little bit? But I think Tsunoda thought, this isn't my race. He did back off a little bit in the end there. There wasn't much defending once he knew he was side by side.
He must be thinking he's got the potential to race against Ocon and Vettel once they pit.
Exactly.
That'll be his race.
Don't
and,
waste
you
time.
know, it could be a podium for Tsunoda today. We just don't know, because we just don't know how things are going to look once, you know, those top 4 have pitted off the medium tires. If they come onto the hard tires, if they stay with mediums, as it's showing footage of George Russell going around the outside of Mick Schumacher. Can he get it done? He can. George Russell up into 9th position, overtaking Mick Schumacher, and on he goes. And that's George Russell on the hard tires as well, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. So
good stuff from George Russell then, because he's created that gap now with Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen behind the Haas of Mick Schumacher still. So yeah, great manoeuvre from George Russell. And in the chat earlier, I think it was stated, Joe put, does anyone think George or Latifi can get in the points today? I think it's their best opportunity, like Conor mentioned earlier. It's their best opportunity really, and for Haas, if they play it right with Schumacher, if there are any other incidents, say, in this race. But this is probably the perfect race so far this season, that both teams have the possibility of getting in the points, Conor.
Mick Schumacher is having a fantastic race today, probably his best race in Formula One. You know, he's only competing in 10th, but the great defensive work that we saw him do against Max Verstappen for several laps, the good drive against George Russell there, and he's holding up Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen now. He had good challenges with Lewis too, but Daniel Ricciardo's doing a late dive, send it for Daniel Ricciardo into corner 1. Oh, tight squeeze there from Daniel Ricciardo on Mick Schumacher, but he's got the job done. So there goes Daniel Ricciardo, Mick Schumacher out of the points. And now Max Verstappen's looking for an opportunity around turn 2, trying to take it around the Haas, and he gets the job done as well. So we're racing on now for both of these cars. And that's the end of, I think that will be the end of Mick Schumacher's dreams of scoring some points in this race, unfortunately, unless there's a few more retirements. But yeah, good racing there for the last 30 or so laps by Mick Schumacher since the restart, but unfortunately, stronger engines prevail in this case of the Honda and the Mercedes engine of the McLaren and of Red Bull.
Yeah, I think it was, like you said, it was only a matter of time at some point that they got past. I think Max has been helped a bit by, obviously, Schumacher being a little bit distracted with Daniel Ricciardo's pass. They thought, oh, okay, I've got an opportunity here to get past exactly the same time, and that's what happened. Kimi Raikkonen's now bearing down on the Haas of Mick Schumacher as well, who obviously Kimi Raikkonen has come in more recently with a new set of hard compound tyres, so you expect that he should get the job done as well from Mick Schumacher. But like you said, don't count anybody out of the possibility of getting points. We could still have some instance here. Is that a move already from Kimi Raikkonen? Oh, one of them's in the pits. That's Mick Schumacher is now coming into the pits.
Mick Schumacher's pit. It showed a really odd image of the sky there. I was thinking, it's not going to rain again, is it?
Surely not.
Surely not. But yeah, Lewis on the charge. He's got a lot of clean air here, and we know what the Mercedes can do with clean air, because we've seen plenty of races in this scenario with with Lewis just with clean air ahead of him and really pushing the time. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Carlos Sainz, because he's on the hard tires, but I think he pitted earlier, I think, than what Lewis did. I can't remember what the tire ages were, but yeah. I think with Lewis now, like how much racing do you want to do? How much do you want to challenge Sainz? Because as soon as Alonso and Vettel and Ocon pit, then the gaps are going to start to open up for him.
Yeah.
In order to try and regain the lead of this race, because on track he is fifth, but with all the cars still to pit ahead of him, he's essentially second right now. So how much do you want to challenge Sainz right now in order to try and get into second, because you into fourth, because you could end up being put into traffic then with the guys ahead of you still to pit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's very much that Lewis is sort of in his own race at the moment. I can see the gap to Alonso is around about just over 16 seconds. So he's about 1.2 just behind Carlos Sainz. I think if he closes up and he's managed to overtake him with DRS, then that's absolutely fine. But like you said, I think with it being lap 37 out of 70, there's much time as we see Vettel coming into the pit. So he's the first one to make a manoeuvre between Ocon and Vettel. Let's see the stop, Connor. Is it a good one?
Yeah, decent start. 3.3 seconds onto the hard tires, and he comes out into third place. So a very strong pit stop for Sebastian Vettel on the hard tires, ahead of Carlos Sainz, who just comes around corner one now. So it's about 2 seconds, the gap between Carlos Sainz and Vettel, maybe a bit larger, maybe about 3. But Ocon's been told to push, so this is his out lap here. He's going to come into the pits most likely when he comes around to the final few corners. So Ocon's getting ready to pit, and as well with Alonso just behind him.
This is Alpine 1-2.
Alpine double stack potentially in the pit stop. I don't know. It could potentially.
Well, there's 14 seconds between the two of them, so I think it's certainly a possibility that if they wanted a double stack at exactly the same time, then it's definitely a chance. There's enough of a gap between the pair of them to make that move. It's just maybe whether that would delay Alonso a little bit. I don't know when he comes out. So they're definitely making that move. So how many tires are they bringing out? Are they bringing out enough for a double stack, or is it just for Esteban Ocon?
It looks like just one set, so it's just Ocon coming into the pits here. Ocon for the race lead, clean pit stop. Let's see it can happen. Yes, clean pit stop for Ocon. 2.3 seconds for Ocon in the pits. Here comes Alonso. So Alonso goes into the provisional race lead, but he's yet to pit. He's on the mediums, and Ocon in second, ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Great pit stop there for Alpine, and now it'll be interesting to see how much longer Alonso stays out for. If it's just going to be an extra lap for him. But yeah, Alonso racing in a race lead for the first time in a long time in Formula One. There we go. There's another
unlucky for Sebastian Vettel. It was worth a try to try and do that undercut pretty close in the end as they were going into turn one. But he might be a little bit closer. But I think Esteban Ocon obviously was a second less in the pit stops in terms of his standing, stationary stops. So it's looking a little bit closer. They're going up into the couple of corners here. Sebastian Vettel looks like he's obviously got the tyres warmed up with that extra lap as well. So this is probably the best time for Vettel maybe to get when he gets the DRS in the next down the start-finish straight. This is a possibility maybe that Vettel could take this. I have no doubt. I expect Alonso maybe will come in on this lap. Maybe to come straight back in the pits and get that hard set of compound tyres on, but we'll wait and see if that is what happens with Fernando Alonso. But I'm loving this battle between Ocon and Vettel.
Yeah, it's been a very entertaining battle. Even now with them in second and third. Alonso leading this race. When does he pit? Does he stay out? He does stay out, so he's pushing on. I think if he pits now, he would come out potentially behind
Hamilton. I think
Hamilton and Sainz maybe. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel must be growing tired of seeing the back of Ocon's car throughout this race so far. Just wants to get ahead of it. But Ocon is having the race of his life in this one of his best races of his Formula One career so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we're on lap 39. We've still got a long way to go in this Hungarian Grand Prix. It feels like a lifetime. Of course, having another red flag, makes that the possibility. Alonso's on the team radio. Obviously not getting the message in, but this could be, next few laps, couple push. It might be box. We're not too sure. The gap's 4 seconds between Alonso and his teammate Ocon, so I think it might be a possibility that they go into the pits this time round.
Blankets are getting ready to come off on tyres for Alonso, but Ocon and Seb are essentially in the same picture as him, so he's definitely come out. He's going to come out in third. Does he come out ahead of Sainz and Hamilton? We'll have to wait and see. I think here we go. Tire blankets are off. Alonso's coming in.
He might be behind Lewis Hamilton, but we'll have to wait and see how great of a pit stop this is from Alpine. Did a great stop for Esteban Ocon, but can they do the same thing for Fernando Alonso? Obviously, his birthday over the weekend turned 40 on Thursday?
It was turn 40.
Let's hope it's a birthday weekend to remember.
In, good pit stop, 2.5 seconds. So he's already out. Sorry, he's out behind Alonso. He's out behind Sainz and Hamilton. So yeah, it was always going to be that case because of the pit timing and things like that. But I suppose the key thing is that he's got ahead of Tsunoda there in their battle for midfield points between them and AlphaTauri, and that's suppose the best case scenario that Alpine could hope for, given the raw power that we've seen from Hamilton this afternoon, and how well Carlos Sainz has driven so far for Ferrari this season. So it very much looks as though we're going to get an Alpine on the podium. It very much looks as though we're going to get potentially either one of Vettel and Sainz on the podium. Is Hamilton going to be joining him on the podium, Jack? We're over halfway through this race now.
I think it's inevitable. Looking at maybe the performance, it's just whether Hamilton is going to keep this going. Whether they look at maybe doing a tyre change again. Whether the opportunity, as we see Pierre Gasly making a manoeuvre there, good late braking manoeuvre from Pierre Gasly, moves up a place. But I think it's I think unless the tyres go off dramatically, I think Lewis Hamilton will definitely make his way onto the podium now. It's just like you said where that's going to be, and it's going to be another crushing blow for Max Verstappen, because of no fault of his own. Obviously with the damage, he's still out of the points at the minute, and Lewis Hamilton closing his way up onto the podium positions. Yeah, not a great weekend again for Max Verstappen and Red Bull as a whole.
I suppose another big storyline is that both Williams cars are still in the points.
Yep. So 6 points they could get at the moment if they continued at this rate.
That'd be huge for them. But just a reminder for everyone as well, just the reason why this race is so frantic. And yeah, here we go. Max Verstappen's in the pits, medium tyres coming on.
Okay. Nothing to lose, really.
Nothing to lose here. Try and maybe bank in a fastest lap, and just to take an extra point away from Hamilton, and also just to maybe the medium is the better tyre long term, as we've seen from Ocon and Vettel. They've managed to keep first and second respectively, despite the late pit stops compared to everyone else.
I have to say,
the medium tyre's good. Oh, lock up from Vettel. Ooh, going into turn one, lost a bit of time there on Ocon.
I was going to say, I have to say, great pit stop from Red Bull there with Verstappen, 1.8 seconds. Fantastic pit stop from them to obviously make sure he comes back out. The only one on track now, I believe, with the medium compound tyres. It's showing the current tyre rate. So let's see what type of laps Max Verstappen can put in. Obviously, like we said, he has got that damage, but can that softer compound tyre now, with a few of them being on the hard tyres for a few laps now, can that make an impact for Red Bull as they try and progress and obviously try and get that fastest lap as well? It's currently down at Fernando Alonso, because Hamilton's also lost that fastest lap at the moment as well.
Yeah, just as I was saying, a reminder for everyone as to why this race has been so frantic. In turn one of lap one, because of the wet weather, we had several cars collide with one another. Valtteri Bottas, Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc all had some sort of contact on that opening lap, which resulted them in being unfortunately out of the race. And after that as well, we had a collision between Kimi Räikkönen and Nikita Mazepin in the pit stops, whereas an unsafe release from Räikkönen resulted in Nikita Mazepin's race being ended early, with his tyres and suspension being messed up. So he's out of the race as well. So we've got 6 cars out of this. And as a result of that, we got Esteban Ocon leading the way, with Sebastian Vettel in second place. Not a scenario that you would have seen coming into this race, not a scenario you would have predicted at the start of this race. Everyone was talking about how it would be between Hamilton and Max Verstappen, with Hamilton being on the medium tyres and Max Verstappen being on the soft tyres going into this race after qualifying. But the rain came down, and as a result of that, we had everyone starting on inters, and we had a huge collision in the opening corner, which caused a lot of people to pick up some damage, including Verstappen himself, who's fallen all the way down and out of the points. But on the flip side of that, Lewis came out of the first corner's collision clean and ahead, and even after misjudging the restart with everyone going on to mediums after the track dried out a little bit, he stayed on the inters, and he was sole driver on the grid for the restart. Quite an imagery if you're able to find it. But even with that, Lewis Hamilton's managed to overcome those problems and finds himself in 4th position at the moment. But the race order, Jack, is quite something so far, with Esteban Ocon leading the way.
Yeah, if you put a bet on that, a bit like the one, like you said, when Pierre Gasly won the Italian Grand Prix, and somebody actually put the actual finishing order on that. If somebody's put a bet on this at the moment, you are probably sitting in a lovely and comfortable position, or you're very nervous because it's only lap 44 out of 70, and you're praying that this is the order that it stays in. But you're seeing on the graphics as well, Carlos Sainz is doing a great defensive job against Lewis Hamilton here as well. Fernando Alonso's on the tracker only around 8 laps before he catches this group of Sainz and Hamilton as well. So this is certainly a possibility. Hamilton's been on the radio to say his rears are a very swear word. We've got 4 stars appearing on the team radio, so make that up as you would. But yeah, it could be that maybe we see Lewis Hamilton pitting in for a set of medium tyres and then trying to work his way back up the grid again. That's something that could happen a little bit closer to the end of this race, so watch out for that as well.
Yeah, and as things stand, it's showing the Drivers' Championship. As things stand, with Lewis Hamilton in 4th, he would move up onto 189 points, which would put him 4 points ahead of Max Verstappen entering the summer break. So
wow,
oof. Wow indeed, wow so far. I think lock up there from Hamilton going into turn 1. Lost a bit of time there now on Carlos Sainz. Got to make up that time again. But if this race ended now, Esteban Ocon potentially picking up his first ever F1 win. It's just a fantastic drive from him today. As you mentioned, Carlos Sainz as well. Both Williams drivers having a fantastic drive. Yuki Tsunoda's done well as well after his poor, disappointing race weekend so far, with collision with the barriers in practice, and a disappointing qualifying performance, which saw him starting 12th, I think it was. But he's managed to make that up, and he's up into 6th at the moment. So good performances by him so far. Yeah. Brilliant weekend by a lot of drivers.
I was going to say, I'd love to see this...
Sorry, Tsunoda started in 16th, not 12th. That was
right.
Stroll.
He's having even better. Yeah, made up 10 places from there. But I'd love to see this tracker of Fernando Alonso, and it's coming up on the screen map here as well. And 8 tenths on Lewis Hamilton on the last lap as well. So I'd love to keep watching this gap between Fernando Alonso. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton is on 26-lap-old hard compound tyres. Fernando Alonso's only on done 5 laps or 6 laps on them tyres. So with fresher tyres for Fernando Alonso, can he claw this gap up to Lewis Hamilton? Like I said, it might be. Joe's put it on the chat as well. Maybe that Lewis Hamilton comes in on the soft compound tyres a little bit later in the race, get that fastest lap, and try and make up them few positions. Because I think with the fact that, say, Tsunoda, Gasly, you've got Russell. Obviously, if he makes that pit stop, he's still still going to be getting in the points and try and maybe claw some more back up with a few more laps to go. But I think it's definitely a possibility that he puts a fresher compound. It might be the softs, it might be the mediums, but it might be that Lewis Hamilton does that a little bit later on in the race. We will wait and see. But lap 46 out of 70, Esteban Ocon is still leading. Gap between him and Vettel is around 1.2, 1.3 seconds, and Carlos Sainz is about 5 seconds behind them. With Lewis Hamilton pretty close behind. But there's that gap to Alonso and Hamilton that I'm trying to keep an eye on as well, to see if Alonso is clawing that gap back between Hamilton.
Yeah, we're starting to see a few more gaps emerge in the midfield. Bit of a huge gap, as you mentioned. Their own little battle between Sainz, Hamilton, and Alonso. Then 18 seconds between Alonso and Tsunoda.
Yeah.
All the way down to, well, I would say just Tsunoda and Gasly in their own little team battle there. With Gasly only a second behind Tsunoda, and then it's all the way another seconds to Latifi, and another 16 after that to Russell. So there's a lot of gaps there. That is huge for Williams if they can get to 2 cars in the points.
Absolutely. And like you said, Daniel Ricciardo must have damage from that first lap incident, because he's still about a second, just over a second from George Russell. So there must be, from that tangle he had maybe with Charles Leclerc, I think it was, after that first turn incident, he must have some damage also to his McLaren car. Obviously we saw Lando Norris go out with the incident he had on turn 1 as well, that the team weren't able to get that car fixed before the red flag was finished, so he had to retire. But again, Daniel Ricciardo must have some issues, and Kimi Raikkonen is ahead of Max Verstappen at the moment, and a gap of around 4 to 5 seconds. So yeah, not a great day for Max Verstappen. It's very much hoping that maybe Hamilton has an issue himself, because I don't think he's going to get into the points on his car performance at the moment.
No, I think Raikkonen might have jumped Vettel as he came. Verstappen as he came to the pits. But crucially now, Hamilton is coming to the pits here.
Right.
So,
okay, so
he's done with the hard tyres.
Yeah.
Probably going to go onto the mediums here. But let's have a look at the pit stop. It is going to be the medium tyres for Lewis Hamilton. Clean pit stop by him. 2.3 seconds. Already on his way out of the pit lane. Strong pit stop by Mercedes there. And we see where Hamilton is going to come out. Any cars coming down the start-finish straight? No, there isn't.
Comfortably ahead of Tsunoda, I think, wasn't he?
So he's comfortably ahead of Tsunoda. Quite a margin there, about four or so seconds. But fresher tyres now as he looks to challenge Alonso and Sainz and try and seal in a podium position at the very least, and maybe even march on after that to try and get the race win itself. But that kind of throws the strategy out the window for Red Bull to try and move forward. But I suppose they'll try and do as much as they can on the medium tyres and then decide whether or not they want to put Verstappen on the softs near the end of the race, just to try and take away the fastest lap should Hamilton pick it up in his Mercedes on the mediums.
Yeah, I just seen obviously Claudia a little bit disappointed from your perspective. I know you were hoping for a really long stop from Mercedes. 80-second pit stop at one point, you were saying. That has not happened, sadly, for Mercedes' point of view. Obviously, for fans of Max Verstappen or fans of not maybe wanting to see, is that...
Yeah, so we had the blue flags there going into turn 1. Ocon was obviously taking over the Alfa Romeo, but then Seb tried to jump on Ocon as he went through.
Was that the moment, Connor?
Ocon just about managed to defend it very well there, but Sebastian is closing up the gap to the Alpine there. And I suppose now he's got to watch out for all these blue flags.
Yeah.
He's never been in this scenario before, Ocon, where he's got the race lead to defend whilst also overtaking blue flagged cars and with a challenger to that race lead just behind him as well. So Ocon's got to use all of his experience, his racecraft here if he wants to stay in the lead of this race. And so far he's having an absolutely fantastic drive.
Crafty work from Vettel there.
Yeah, I think you would have to put it up there. I'll be honest, I've not been the biggest of Ocon fans, so I can't really remember a lot of his races other than the Bahrain podium. But I think even with that in mind, you would have to say this is his best race of his Formula One career, and if he goes on to win it, he'll be one that he'll never forget as well.
Absolutely, I think he's obviously had he had struggles last year. Coming back into the sport, and obviously having Daniel Ricciardo as his teammate. I think Daniel Ricciardo was better than Esteban Ocon last year, but I think battling with Fernando Alonso, as we see Sebastian Vettel looking for a possible move, but not closer enough. But I think he's obviously improved. Got Fernando Alonso coming in, maybe having the same situation that Ocon had last year, just getting used to maybe the sport again. But I think overall his performances have improved. It's warranted a new deal. Has maybe fell off away a little bit after that new deal was signed, but I think this race in general is just showing the quality that Esteban Ocon can provide, and that's why he's still down at the moment as a Mercedes driver. He's still in that management section of Mercedes, so that he's always in and around that possibility if say George Russell or Valtteri Bottas wasn't an option. But I think they are the only two in contention. I think Alpine and Ocon have a perfect relationship. Both the team being French, the driver being French is a perfect perfect scenario for both. And he's putting in an absolute incredible performance if he manages on to take this win. But Vettel's just over a second. He might get DRS again on this lap. This will be interesting. But this is the experience of a four-time world champion of Sebastian Vettel, really showing his stuff. That maneuver then almost getting the overtake done on that blue with the blue flags for the Alfa Romeo. Great stuff from Vettel.
I would like the chat to do a challenge for us and to answer the question as to when was the last time a Renault / Alpine car won a race, and who was it and at what circuit was that? Because this will be another great moment for the manufacturer of Renault to finally get themselves back on the top of the podium if they were to go on to win the race.
Are we going to say it has to be Renault or Alpine? Because I think the team would be Lotus, but I don't know if it'd be Grosjean or Raikkonen.
Well, any sort of variation of the team, so long as the team itself is still part of that history, part of the history. So say if we were in a scenario for AlphaTauri, you could say, okay, any Toro Rosso wins or anything like that, or any Toro Rosso podiums, that kind of historical.
I would say it would be Lotus, but I'm not sure. Maldonado didn't win anything for Lotus, did he? I don't think he only won that one for Williams. So he may have got a podium possibly, but I think it would be maybe between Grosjean and Raikkonen in that year for Lotus. But obviously let us know in the chat when that was. It could be a very historic day for that team. Now being an Alpine. So we're seeing blue flags again. Sainz and Alonso getting past Giovinazzi.
Yeah, blue flags there. So Sainz and Alonso cruising through, and you have to wait and see where Hamilton is. He comes around the last corner, so he'll be closing up the gap to Giovinazzi. Did you say it was? Yeah. So
I think it's Giovinazzi.
Yeah. Once Lewis closes that gap and he's on the tail of Sainz and Alonso, how much time does he spend behind them? Because we are coming into the closing quarters now of the race itself, lap 52. So I suppose now it might be a good time to put up a poll and ask who's people's driver of the day has been. But I think it's only one driver, and even if he doesn't go on to win the race itself, I think you can't really question anyone else other than Esteban Ocon being driver of the day. Just a fantastic drive by him to not only keep the race lead for so long, but to also put in a fantastic battle against Seb Vettel as he tries to challenge him for the race lead in this one. And even with 52 laps gone and still 18 to go, my driver of the day, Esteban Ocon, it's not really going to be changed anywhere from that. But I suppose you could put a few other options in there as well. Vettel, of course, for being in that position. Maybe Hamilton as well because of his drive in the Mercedes, how well he's drove up the order. And maybe one of the Williams drivers as well. The fact that they're in the points, Latifi and Russell, could be their own little pairing as to a joint driver of the day, shall we say?
Yeah,
getting Williams their points.
So I will put the poll out now. So it will be to choose your driver of the day, like Connor has mentioned. There are a few points in there. Esteban Ocon is down as one. Sebastian Vettel is another. We've also got Lewis Hamilton, and I've put the option of other if you think it'll be any other driver of there. But if it is, and you have clicked the other section, let us know in the comments who you think that would be, and obviously we'll go through that in terms of a discussion as well. little bit close to Conor, actually. It's just under a second between Vettel and Ocon. I've just noticed. So that could be interesting. You just said him as your driver of the day. He then might lose the place to Vettel.
Hopefully not. There's still a second, so still got fingers crossed. But yeah, even for Vettel to get onto the podium again, in this Aston Martin, it's such a great achievement for him. Especially after the last few years at Ferrari, with the problems that Ferrari have had and the fact that he's managed to jump into this car and get some crucial points for Aston Martin as they look to rebound after what's been a difficult start to the season for themselves. The fact that he's able to get into the points and to get some solid points again, and climb up the order to a podium position potentially, huge and a great race by him. But we still got this really crucial battle for third, and also a looming Lewis Hamilton potentially to try and sneak onto the podium too.
He's just got the blue flag of Giovinazzi. Alonso's just got the DRS on Sainz, and obviously Hamilton will be catching Fernando Alonso up as well on that medium set of tyres. With obviously Alonso having fresh-ish set of hard compound tyres as well, which sees him catching Sainz. But yeah, Hamilton on the fresher compound of the softer version of the tyre as well. So this could be very interesting. I don't think Fernando Alonso is going to give Lewis Hamilton much space if he goes in for a defensive manoeuvre, but him and Sainz are obviously fighting for that third spot. I think it'd be a little bit gutted if you're Carlos Sainz having a great performance to maybe lose out to Hamilton on this, but yeah, you've obviously still got Fernando Alonso in between as well, so this could be a very interesting battle for this third place. But I think with how it's going at the minute, I think Ocon and Vettel are probably set for a podium position unless there's any issues coming into the end of this race on lap 54 of 70.
What do you do now if you're Max Verstappen and Red Bull? Because Lewis Hamilton has fastest lap. Do you pit Verstappen onto the softs in the next 10 laps or so and try and get that quickest lap in order to take that point away?
Yeah, he's very close to Daniel Ricciardo. I've been seeing on the smaller screen that there has been a possibility of maybe overtaking Ricciardo. I think they might wait to see that, as we've got Kimi Räikkönen coming out of the pits. It might have stopped Lewis Hamilton of making that maybe maneuver down the inside. The blue flag. Oh, Fernando Alonso's gone a little bit wide. Is this going to cause Lewis Hamilton to go through? He's got DRS. Alonso's not going to give him that much room. Oh, squeezed him out a little bit there. That is old Fernando Alonso, not giving Lewis Hamilton any room whatsoever. Hamilton will be pretty close. He made a move on Tsunoda here. Is he going to go past Fernando Alonso? No. Fernando once again says, no, thank you, son. You're not getting past me at that point. So again, Fernando Alonso, great experience there. We've seen these two battle throughout the years. It's great to see that this is actually for a decent amount of points and possibly a podium as well. It's great to see Fernando Alonso and Hamilton fighting proper for a position there. But we've seen Kimi Räikkönen actually come out on a set of soft compound tyres, so he may get the fastest lap, Conor. He's not the fastest of Alfa Romeo, but he may beat Lewis Hamilton to that. We'll have to wait and see what his lap times are, and if he's going to be too busy letting past maybe some blue flags. It'll be dependent on traffic with that. But
yeah, Alonso and Hamilton, they don't want to be battling for too long, because the longer they battle, the gap opens up for Carlos Sainz in third.
Yeah.
So Carlos Sainz will be loving to see Hamilton and Alonso battling in his rear view mirrors.
Yeah.
But the longer these two battle, the more it benefits neither of them, the more it benefits Sainz. So
Hamilton
Alonso's got.
Is he going to be in close enough? Not on the first turn, but he's obviously going to have DRS again as he goes down to turn 2. So we'll just see again. Has he opened it up? Yes, he has. No, Fernando Alonso's just got enough of a gap here as well. So this is actually an interesting point as well. We spent a lot of the race looking at Ocon and Vettel, and that's still just over a second. But we've now gone to two of the oldest on the grid of Alonso and Hamilton, and this could be a very interesting battle for this possible podium place. But like you said, Conor, the more these two squabble it out, the faster maybe Carlos Sainz will get away, even though he's on an older set of hard tyres.
Yeah, Lewis will want to get this job done very quickly so that he can push on to challenge Sainz in the final 10 laps or so. It just depends on how quickly he can get past Alonso and into fourth position. The gap time between them now is under a second, so when we come round to the start finish straight, DRS will be active for Hamilton and he'll be able to challenge Alonso coming into turn 1. So we'll see how it goes as they come round the final corner now and now onto the straight. And Lewis is closing up that gap, but I don't think it's going to be enough for the first corner unless he does a dive bomb. Always going around the outside. No, he's not going to take him there on the first corner, potentially at corner 2. DRS once more as he looks to go around the outside. Alonso pushed him to the outside on turn 2. Ooh, almost contact there between the two tires, but no, it stays clean there. Alonso stays ahead. Lewis still pushing towards the back end of Alonso's car, and side by side once more going into turn 4, but Alonso stays ahead once more.
This is
the experience
Fernando
of
Alonso. This is Fernando Alonso. This is what we've been waiting to see as he's made his return back to the sport. That is proper wheel-to-wheel racing, and Hamilton knows he has to give up that position. He doesn't want to lose the points he's going to get in this race from battling Fernando Alonso, and this is pure racing between these two drivers who we know have been teammates in the past and obviously had a rivalry inter-team battle as well, and obviously a rivalry between maybe the Ferrari and McLaren days as well, and this is great racing between the two of them.
Do you think Alonso's thinking now, because of how much Lewis has challenged him over the past few laps, that third place is gone now for him? Do you think the best he can do is 4th, and he's just got to do his best to keep Lewis behind him?
I think quite possible. I think Sainz, like you said, is absolutely loving this. I think it'd be the same way around if Alonso was in Sainz's position, he'd be loving it. Because obviously Carlos Sainz wouldn't want to give this position up as well. We can see Sainz has extended that gap against Hamilton for a bit. Hamilton has to make this manoeuvre done in the next couple of laps or so to try and track down Carlos Sainz. But again, Fernando Alonso, great under braking, great positioning of the car as he goes into turn 1, hits that apex perfectly, even when Hamilton is technically faster in that Mercedes over the Alpine and with their DRS. Fernando just knows where to put that car on the racetrack, and that is pure experience and pure racing knowledge there from Fernando Alonso. Brilliant racing from him, and obviously, like you said, that gap's getting to about 2 seconds between Alonso and Sainz now, so it is that Carlos Sainz and Ferrari have got their fingers crossed that this battle continues for the next few laps, just so Ferrari can extend that gap, and it will be a great finish from both them and Carlos Sainz, and you can see on the tracker that Fernando Alonso has been 18 laps on this hard compound tyre. Lewis Hamilton has had 10 laps on this medium compound, so it should all be rosy for Lewis Hamilton if he didn't have the driver of Fernando Alonso in front of him.
Yeah, with Sainz in 3rd as well, this would be huge for Ferrari and the constructors.
Yeah.
Especially with Norris being out of this race and Ricciardo only in 10th with the one extra point.
Yeah.
So Ferrari on 148 at the moment, with the podium for Sainz, that would be is it
Ooh, a bit shaky
100?
for Hamilton.
I think they would just be ahead of McLaren by 2 points in the constructors if Sainz gets 3rd on the podium, or they might be tied because of Ricciardo's point in 10th, but it'll be a huge swing for Ferrari going into the summer break if they're able to jump McLaren into 3rd in the constructors.
Yeah, and Connor, quick mention, we haven't spoken about him recently, but 8th and 9th still for the Williams drivers. This is looking for a double point scoring finish from them at the minute.
10 laps to go with Ricciardo behind him as well, and we've not really seen on the broadcast any sort of Ricciardo challenge on Russell.
No.
So the fact that the two are able to get points, I think as well, this might be the first time that I think it's just in qualifying that Latifi's finished ahead of Russell, with both of them finishing on the track, I should say. But just the fact that they're both in the points, it will be a huge celebration for Williams to get both drivers scoring points on the weekend.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the broadcast now as Carlos Sainz is going around the corner. Has Alonso and Hamilton maybe done a truce, and maybe they've just gone, maybe we should catch Sainz up a little before we battle? Because it looks like Alonso's closed that gap a little bit to Carlos Sainz, and maybe they've spoke to each other somehow. Communication between Alpine and Mercedes and gone, hang on, perhaps we need to catch the Ferrari up first.
some mind talking, between
yeah.
You can only talk to each other through your mind if you're a world champion.
Yeah.
Telepathic talking.
They've got their own special team radio. It's like a championship radio message. So Vettel, Alonso, Hamilton have both got this. And
hey! Don't forget about Raikkonen.
Yeah, I was going to say I won't forget about Raikkonen, but he's not that bothered in 12th position. He probably won't be that bothered.
He's just telling them to shut up. Like he knows what he's doing. But yeah, that's the thing, 10 laps to go. They can't be battling too much between themselves. They got to close up the gap to Sainz and then think about battling.
Yeah.
Because otherwise neither of them will get podium. So yeah, it'll be as they march on, the gap is definitely closed up a little bit now, because you can see pretty much Alonso and Sainz almost next to each other on the corners. Whereas before it was about 2 seconds, but now it's around about a second and a half, maybe even less than that, maybe about a second even. Just DRS for Hamilton. So it's over a second between Alonso and Sainz, but Hamilton is closing the gap up to.
It's Verstappen got Ricardo.
Yes.
Okay.
He does.
Okay, so the Red Bull have at least got 1 point in this whole thing. But that again, Connor, goes to the Ferrari-McLaren battle. McLaren haven't got a point now because Daniel Ricciardo's been overtaken. He's lost that 1 point they were going to get.
And yeah, so it looks. I think Red Bull will keep, as long as he keeps on doing as he is with just overtaking Ricciardo there. I think Verstappen will stay out on the medium tires and not challenge any further.
So he's done a cutback there, hasn't he, on Daniel Ricciardo there. He's gone a little bit
the
wide.
Old switcheroo.
The old switcheroo. Daniel Ricciardo would have loved that if it was the other way around for sure. But he's obviously had DRS get better performance off the lines where he's on that medium compound tyre against Daniel Ricciardo on the hard, and he has just made that manoeuvre work. So, great job from Max Verstappen there, but still only in 10th position. So only that 1 extra point for them, with Lewis Hamilton also gone, that still got the fastest lap as well. Oh, it's only 2 points, though, in the live championship standing between the two of them. Hamilton will be leading by just over 2 points as they go into
this is why it's so crucial for Hamilton to try and overtake Alonso, because all these points matter.
Yeah.
And with damage to Verstappen's car, 10th might be the best that he can do today. I'm not too sure about the gap between him and Russell. Might not be that much, but there's potential for more. But it'll be huge for Hamilton if he's able to get past Alonso and maybe even onto the podium. But we're closing up towards the end of the race now, only 8 laps to go.
Yeah.
Not a lot of time left.
And I've just seen from the comments, I'm a little bit disappointed I'm not doing the drive of the day again, as we see Lewis Hamilton closing up, but Fernando Alonso, great defensive manoeuvre. I wished I'd put maybe Fernando Alonso in his own little drive of the day section, because he's really shone after I've put that poll back up. But of course, put it in the chat if you feel like Fernando Alonso is deserving of this drive of the day. I think he's been spectacular all race, but I think these final few laps are really highlighting once again that he's still got it. We know he's fighting for Indy 500. We know he's won Le Mans 24-hour after he's obviously retired from Formula 1, but here he is again back in a Formula 1 car and battling the 7-time world champion, the man that's dominated the sport over the last few years, Lewis Hamilton. And this is great racing, and in that, Connor, although he's defending Lewis Hamilton, he's closing the gap between Carlos Sainz as well. Yeah,
the gap has closed up, and Lewis is challenging Alonso now into the first corner. Went inside, went outside. Still hasn't got past him though. Still behind him. Great defensive work there by Alonso in the first corner, but corner 2 could be different as Hamilton goes round the outside, but can't get enough. Switch back, trying to get into the inside. To the outside of Alonso in turn 3. Nothing there. Approaching turn 4 on the outside for Lewis. Can he get round him? No. Alonso keeps him at bay. Alonso, another great defensive work there by the 2-time champion, keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay.
Was very close. That was close going into that turn 3. But what I would say is that has seen Carlos Sainz extend that gap a little bit. It's gone to 1.1 to 1.8 seconds now. So that little defensive manoeuvre has seen them two cars drop back a little bit. I was just going to say, it would be interesting. Hamilton doesn't really want Alonso to get the DRS from Carlos Sainz, because again, that sees DRS being useless really from Lewis Hamilton's point of view. He needs to make that manoeuvre with the bonus of DRS. If Alonso somehow gets it from Carlos Sainz, then it could be even more difficult for Hamilton to overtake. But that was really close. We're seeing the replay again, especially after turn 2 going into turn 3. That was pretty close again from the two ex-teammates, but great manoeuvres again from Alonso. I bet Hamilton's thinking, why did this guy come back? Why did this guy? And we see contact a little bit on the tyres as well.
Yeah, Hamilton's still pushing. Less than half a second between the two now. So the gap's closed a lot. It's got to be done soon if he wants to close up to third, because time's running out.
Yeah.
Here he goes again. Looking to get round in turn 5. No, there's not enough space there. not enough space for him at all. Can't close that gap up, and we go around again. And yeah, the best opportunity is those first 3 corners, I think, to overtake. Although we have seen Hamilton overtake Tsunoda in that turn 4, and really do well there.
Is Fernando Alonso driving around with a huge smile on his face right now, Connor? There must be a huge grin right now.
I think this is why he came back to Formula One, because he wants races like this. He wants competitive races.
We all want races like this. We all want to see this. This is brilliant stuff. And like you said, it's not the same order. Hamilton's really having to work to get on the podium this time round. At that speed, it's so dangerous, man. No, Hamilton, this is racing. Come on. Be a man. Let's do this. Let's fight against Fernando Alonso. You know.
There he goes. DRS on the start, finish straight. Lap 65. Only 5 laps to go. Hamilton closing up the gap to Alonso, approaching the first corner, but no, he breaks early. Lock up for Alonso, though. Here's an opportunity for Hamilton to try and get his foot down on the straight, and he's done it. He's got past him on the straight, entering corner 2. Alonso's pushing, though, to come back around the outside. Nothing there, though. The gap's already opened up between Lewis and Alonso, and now Lewis marches on with that Mercedes-powered car on towards Carlos Sainz. 5 laps to go, potentially to try and overtake him and finish 3rd on the podium. I think it's 7 seconds between Vettel and Sainz, so I think 3rd's probably the best that Lewis can hope for. But Lewis has got the job done on Alonso into turn 1 because of the lockup of Alonso.
And run really wide there, and obviously Hamilton with that perfect line then also gets the DRS as an extra boost against Fernando Alonso. Alonso trying to make that maneuver once again, but I think that the age of the tyres between the two then came into effect. So great job from Lewis Hamilton, but obviously disappointing if, like me, you're a Fernando Alonso fan more than Lewis Hamilton. A little bit disappointing.
And he's already closed up the gap to Carlos Sainz. It's less than half a second. Right. So he's going to get DRS approaching the start finish straight.
So what Alonso wants is a bit of a defensive move from Sainz to maybe claw this back up again, give him another opportunity. But can this happen? Do you think Hamilton's just going to brisk past him?
First corner, he's trying to go around the outside. Nothing there, though. So it's going to have to be a turn 2 job if he wants to get it done on this lap. But the gap's still quite large. Sainz defends the outside and then pushes inward. He's got that nice line approaching turn 3. And that should be it for the lap at the very least, unless Lewis does a dive bomb around turn 4. No, Sainz stays defensive.
Fellow Spaniard of Carlos Sainz. Alonso be hoping, like I said, he does maybe a bit more defensive maneuver, holds up Lewis Hamilton in this, so maybe Alonso can get back in the game. But yeah, gap between Vettel and Sainz is around about 8 seconds, so this is definitely a battle just for 3rd place at the moment. Ocon and Vettel, unless there's any issues with reliability in the final few laps, have secured either 1st or 2nd if Vettel can maybe make another maneuver on Ocon. We've obviously got a blue flag here for Daniel Ricciardo, so this will be interesting how this plays out if Ricciardo gets straight out of the way with these 3 cars coming on. It should be the case. And this could also be, Connor, that we see Max Verstappen getting a blue flag against Lewis Hamilton if this happens.
I think Verstappen's quite far ahead because he's 15 seconds ahead of Ricciardo, I think. So I don't think they'll catch up to him. But the blue flag here on Daniel Ricciardo has held up Carlos Sainz, and now Lewis Hamilton looking to take him down towards the first corner as they've both got DRS thanks to Daniel Ricciardo. Hamilton takes Carlos Sainz on the first corner, but Carlos Sainz looking to get the switchback. Can't find that power, though. Both still got DRS into turn 2. Carlos Sainz around the outside of Lewis Hamilton trying to get the inside track, but can't do it, can't get it done. Lewis Hamilton gets it done into 3rd position, and that looks as though it will be it for the remainder of the race, as Hamilton is 9 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel with 2.5 laps to go. And that very much looks as though it will be the podium. So Lewis gets the job done. And I suppose now, because Lewis has got the job done, we can start to celebrate the occasion a bit more for Esteban Ocon, because this will be his first ever win in Formula One. We've already mentioned him quite a few bits about him, mentioning about the fact that he's still tied to Mercedes a little bit. What does this do for him? Does he re-enter the conversation now for that 2nd seat, do you think, with him and Russell and Bottas? Or do you think he's still very much an Alpine driver.
I think he should be an Alpine driver for the foreseeable future. I think obviously he signed a new contract. There's a new deal. Like I said, French driver and a French team. It's perfect for both, really. I think Fernando Alonso obviously is a very experienced driver, and obviously will be using that. As I can see, Fernando Alonso's clawing back onto Carlos Sainz here. So this could be the two Spaniards battling it out for fourth place. Ferrari versus Alpine. Could we see the experience of Alonso maybe take that fourth position with Lewis Hamilton too far up the road now? He's gone. Raikkonen has overtaken Daniel Ricciardo as well, so Raikkonen's up to 11th position. But I think it's very much still down to Bottas or Russell for that Mercedes seat for next season. But again, Russell and Latifi putting in an absolute stellar performance, still in 8th and 9th position, although Verstappen is under a second of George Russell, so maybe he could get an extra point. But Lewis has also extended that gap once again to be on the podium, so there will be an extension of points, and Lewis Hamilton will be in the lead going into the summer break.
Huge as we enter now the second to last lap. Sebastian Vettel still a second and a half behind Esteban Ocon. Hamilton's closed the gap to 5.5 seconds to Vettel. Surely not.
No, please leave Vettel alone. He's done a great race. It's annoyed me enough you took Alonso and Sainz. Come on, Lewis. Just take the third place. Come on.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Sainz and Alonso battling. Alonso's got DRS on Sainz for fourth place. This is. It'll be great for Alpine to get 2 cars in the top 4, but even 2 cars in the top 5 is a fantastic weekend for them.
Great performance from the French manufacturer, or the sports car brand of Renault Alpine. Great performance by both Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso, especially when other teams around them, the likes of McLaren, Ferrari have only got this 1 car in the mix. Aston Martin have only got the 1 car in the mix. To get 2 points, to get 2 cars in the top 5 is a great performance. AlphaTauri doing well as well in 6th and 7th, although Pierre Gasly's going into the pits. I know he's got a gap between the rest of the drivers, so maybe he's trying for fastest lap. Is he putting a set of soft compound tyres on? Well, that'd be interesting for the final lap.
It hasn't showed us, but I imagine that would be the scenario, because it would be kind of weird if he came in and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to put you on. We're going to put you on medium." Like, what?
Put you on a set of hard tyres. You got this.
But yeah, it definitely looks as though Gasly's going to go for that fastest lap, try and take that point away from Hamilton.
Maybe the top guys at Red Bull have told the AlphaTauri, let's see if we can get that fastest lap point off Lewis Hamilton.
Because Verstappen, probably could do it in his car, but he needs championship points as well. So he can't really risk it from 10th position and then falling outside the top 10.
Yeah,
not score any points at all. So the next best option would be Gasly, because of the margin of gap that he's got to Tsunoda as well on track, which was about 26 or 27 seconds, but now it's gone down to 5 because of the pit stop for Gasly. But yeah, as it shows on the graphic, last lap here, 1.5 seconds to Ocon and Vettel, 1.7 seconds between Vettel and Hamilton, but Ocon is in sector 3 on the final lap. Here he goes.
You've seen all the Alpine pit crew as well there. They really want to go to the pit wall, but they don't want it just in case there's any issues on this final few corners for Esteban Ocon. But they're dying to get to that point. Max Verstappen's just ahead of him as well, so I think Lewis Hamilton won't lap Max Verstappen at this point. He's just had his blushes saved as Esteban Ocon is coming around the final few corners. Has he done it? Has he taken his first victory?
Yeah. Esteban Ocon is a race winner in Formula 1.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Sebastian Vettel comes home in second place. Lewis Hamilton pretty close behind, but that's Sebastian Vettel for Aston Martin in second place, and Lewis Hamilton crossing the line on the podium. Great result as well for Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, who they're not showing on the graphic yet, but they will probably cross the line in that case, which they have done. So Carlos Sainz for Ferrari in that 4th place, Fernando Alonso 5th. Gasly, we're waiting to see if he takes the fastest lap, but I'm also waiting to see if the Williams cross the line in them double point scoring positions as well. So much has been happening in terms of the positions. We knew they would. We're just waiting for everything to confirm. But yeah, will Gasly take that fastest lap? Will the Williamses be confirmed? It's great to see Esteban Ocon, but I want to also see the rest of them that haven't finished. Come on, where's Pierre Gasly? Where's the Williams? Come on, this is great. It's great that he's won a race, but
ooh. Gasly got fastest lap.
He did. Fantastic. Well done, Pierre Gasly. Well done, Pierre Gasly. Christian Horner will be happy with that, I am sure.
Yeah, on the last lap, Gasly 1.18 on those soft tires. That's just a huge contrast to, I think, Lewis's lap was 120. But Sebastian Vettel on the podium again for the second time this season.
Yeah, and the Williams have crossed the line in 8th and 9th, Connor. Double points. They've been waiting for points for years, and here they come with both of their drivers in the points in one race.
And Ocon and Alonso just celebrating together. I'm sure Alonso is over the moon for Ocon, the fact that he's got his first ever race win. But there's going to be a huge party in that Alpine garage and tonight for them.
Absolutely. I'll end the poll now for the driver of the day as well. Just get that information up on the screen at the time. But obviously, great job, like you said, from Esteban Ocon and the Alpine team. Sebastian Vettel as well. Great performance in his sort of own element as well. Great job, obviously, from Lewis Hamilton as well. As we see the driver of the day stats, 51% of you voted for Esteban Ocon as the driver of the day. Lewis Hamilton with 25% of the votes. Sebastian Vettel with 18%, and 3% that we put in the other section as well, which I think Fernando Alonso took a lot of that in terms of the percentages. And great job from Fernando Alonso as well. As we're seeing everyone else in terms of the comment section as well. You know, obviously talking about Williams getting points. Joe's put in capital letters. Lewis getting on the podium. This is just a lap down. What happened? How is Ocon P1? And so many DNFs. So somebody's joined the race a little bit late. How has this happened?
I think
Esteban Ocon's won.
I think Seb failed to get back around the grid. That's how huge it was for him. And one of the Williams cars fails to get back around the grid as well. I'm not too sure.
Perhaps he's just taking a little stroll.
No, George Russell's just parked his car at the end of the pit lane. I'm not too sure why.
Perhaps he couldn't be bothered to go around again. I've done 70 laps. I've had a red flag. I'll just wait here.
Yeah. But Esteban Ocon has taken all the plaudits and all the applause from the crowd in Hungary as he goes down the pit lane again. Down the main straight again. And he just parks his car at the end of the start-finish straight. Lewis Hamilton's the only one in the it's got his car where it's supposed to be, I suppose.
Is that because he knows
that just
he's used
comes
to
from
it?
Practice,
he's
really,
used to it, yeah.
That comes from
Although
practice.
I'm surprised he didn't park in first place. He's so used to that.
Absolutely scenes, though. Great to see Ocon getting his first ever race win. Seb's parked so far away from the track that he's had to go over a bit of terrain just to get towards the pit lane again.
Brilliant.
And Ocon, yeah, it's just park anywhere now. Park wherever you want, and we'll finish
Perhaps
the race.
I thought he was going into the Portaloo. Perhaps he thought, God, I've had 70 laps. As Esteban Ocon is throwing the sort of headrest out as well. He's, like he said, he's just parked it wherever he's wanted to. Absolute pandemonium. We'll have a valet come out in a minute and just say, here's your ticket. I'll park your car somewhere else later.
Yeah. Seb's running through the pit lane now. He's going to be on the podium again. Sebastian Vettel on the podium again.
Connor, I mean, can we just sum this race up? I mean, what the hell has happened in this race, to be brutally honest? How do we sum this up?
We've had rain, we've had crashes, we've had...
Red flag again.
Red flags, safety cars, first time winners.
Points for Williams.
There's been so much. I think we might look back on this and think, how on earth did this race happen?
Yeah.
There's just so many different storylines to come from it, and it's going to be great to revisit it on when it comes out on Netflix as well.
Yeah, I'm loving
another great episode.
I'm loving that all the teams are like high fiving Esteban Ocon as he's coming down the pit lane. It's like Charles Leclerc there coming out to see him as well. Looks like Charles Leclerc is there as he's coming down the pit lane. That's good to see from the drivers as well. And Sebastian Vettel is also running down, but the complete opposite way. It's like it's a rom-com.
Yeah, they're gonna see each other and jump into each other's arms. Yeah.
There's going to be a mutual embrace as they come to the end where the podium celebrations will be. But I'm loving the celebrations. I love it when there's a team that doesn't get the podiums, doesn't get the race wins. The team are absolutely ecstatic. Jamie's put something in the point as well. It's in less than 12 months we've had 2 different French F1 race winners for the first time. The French are being absolutely spoilt. Before Pierre Gasly, it was Olivier Panis in 1996 in Monaco. Absolutely huge for both Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon to have race wins in sort of the less than 12-month bracket as well. But Lewis Hamilton sort of kneeling down, taking that race in. I think, obviously he did come out of the first lap in the lead, but I think all things considered, he'll be very much happy that he got that podium place when his rival Max Verstappen only got 1 point, Connor.
Yeah, it was a great recovery drive from Lewis after the team misjudged whether or not to go off the inters after the restart. And ultimately, I think they paid the price, but they managed, because of Mercedes, of how such a good team it is, how well they've done over the past couple of years. It shone through today because they managed to get Lewis onto the right strategy. They made the key call to turn to bring him in once more to put the mediums on, and that helped him ultimately overtake Alonso and Sainz and get 3rd place. Really unfortunate for Sainz because he's had a great recovery drive as well, but it'll be overshadowed because of the fact that Ocon got his first race win and Lewis Hamilton's recovery drive. But Sainz has had a great race as well today. He can be very proud. Alonso has had a great race too. He's there celebrating with teammate, which is absolutely fantastic to see. He's just as proud as the race win for him as if it would be his own race win. He's so excited, so jubilation. It's great to see. Looking as well on the race order, a decent drive from Alonso himself, getting into 5th place, of course. Gasly, good points for him, even though he dropped a place to 6th. Yuki Tsunoda, fantastic drive for him, outside the points, into the points. And then, of course, we get to the Williams drivers, Jack, of Latifi and Russell.
Yeah,
brilliant. Them to get their first points in Formula 1.
Absolutely. I mean, the disappointing road that they've been on the last few years, and they've made that transition. Obviously, Jerillian Capital came in and obviously made that investment and saw that the actual family come out of the actual F1 team. They've made some changes recently as well. Simon Roberts stepped down from the team principal role. Jos Capito came and took over that role and sort of like is that main person in that team at the moment. And the car, as like you said, has been making gains throughout this 2021 season. It's been looking better and better. George Russell's been maximising everything, but it's great that not only has George Russell got on the points, but Latifi is ahead of him in the points as well, which shows it's an absolutely stellar performance from not only Russell but Latifi as well.
Huge. And Sebastian Vettel's just been interviewed by Johnny Herbert after his 2nd place position. That's just another great drive by him, pushing Ocon till the very end just to try and get that race win. But Sebastian can be very proud of his drive today as well. It's been an absolutely brilliant drive in that Aston Martin by him, and a well-deserved 2nd place for him as well.
Yeah, no, great job from everyone. Jamie put in Alonso celebrating like Ocon in his Ocon is his son. Great chemistry. It did look great. He was obviously cheering him as he celebrated with the Alpine team as well. But I think Alonso, like you said, did get drive of the day from the F1 group as well. Got 28% of the vote. I think he will be happy with his performance as well as Lewis Hamilton celebrates with Esteban Ocon and congratulations on his first race win. I mean, the emotions that that Esteban Ocon must be going through right now. You know, starting this race, you know, in the top 10, which obviously is great. Didn't really expect, surely, that he would get a race win on this. And whoever put in the betting that Esteban Ocon would win this race, and maybe Sebastian Vettel came in second place as well, you are certainly in the money with that performance and that prediction that was placed. So yeah, great job from everyone involved. Great recovery from Lewis Hamilton after that pit stop from the intermediates to the medium tyres. As you see, Hamilton and Vettel respecting each other after that performance. But yeah, great race for Aston Martin and great race for Sebastian Vettel. But yeah, I'll just run through, like Connor's just mentioned it, but I'll just go through the order. And obviously we might come to an end of the stream, obviously, because once again with the red flag, it has extended this stream once again. It always seems to be, like we said, me and Connor on a stream, that a red flag takes place. But I'll just run through the order. Esteban Ocon, first race win for him, and like Jamie mentioned in the chat, 2 French drivers in less than 12 months winning an F1 Grand Prix, which is fantastic to see for France as a country. Sebastian Vettel in second place, his second podium of the year, so great result from him and Aston Martin. Lewis Hamilton, great recovery time, as I mentioned, to get to third place on the podium. Doesn't get that fastest lap. Pierre Gasly took that in the end, but has clawed that gap for against Max Verstappen, which is the bonus for Hamilton. Carlos Sainz, very unlucky, could have got that third place if it wasn't for the fresher tyres from Hamilton. He finishes in fourth. Fernando Alonso in fifth place. Great manoeuvres from him. It was like the Fernando of old against Lewis Hamilton throughout the race as well. Pierre Gasly, like I said, in sixth with his fastest lap point as well. Yuki Tsunoda, his teammate, just behind in seventh. Great result for him. And then we come the two Williams, Latifi in eighth, George Russell in ninth. Great points, 6 points for the Williams team. They'll be super happy with that, I am sure. Max Verstappen gets the final point. Not the race he would have wanted, especially after the incident he had at the British Grand Prix, but I'm sure he'll take that point, especially with the damage that he had at the beginning of the race. A point is a point at the end of the season. Kimi Raikkonen finishes in 11th. Good result in the end, to be just that one place off the point position. Daniel Ricciardo in 12th. Not a great result for him outside the points, and of course for McLaren as a whole, with Lando Norris also not finishing. Mick Schumacher in 13th place as well, and Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian Jesus, finishing off in 14th. We obviously had Nikita Mazepin, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, Valtteri Bottas, Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. So many DNFs in this race. But yeah, great job from everybody on that leaderboard. But yeah, of course, Esteban Ocon here being interviewed by them, getting a round of applause from absolutely everybody in the stand, which of course is well deserved. Joel saying, good night, I have school in the morning, 3:20 a.m. Good night, Joel, and obviously I hope you had this was a fantastic race to make you stay up a little bit longer. But Connor, before we wrap up of this stream of the Hungarian Grand Prix, you mentioned your driver of the day with about 20 laps to go, and of course he went on to win the race as well. So obviously sticking with that, Esteban Ocon, of course, being the driver of the day for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Capitalised on what happened in the opening lap, and had a great restart as well. After, he was the first into pits, I think, to go on to the medium tires after realizing that the conditions had dried up. So taking advantage of that, great decision by the Alpine team to bring him in, and fantastic defense work against Sebastian Vettel as well to hold on to that win too. He might not have a better drive than this in his Formula One career, Esteban Ocon. But we mentioned as well about the Mercedes links. This is a huge tick in the box for him when it comes to deciding who gets into that car. It may be more difficult because of the contract that he's got with Alpine to claw him away, but if Mercedes sees the potential in him, as they do with the fact that he's still one of their young drivers, one of the part of their drivers contracts team, it was proved today as to why he is still part of that, because he was absolutely fantastic today. Didn't put a foot wrong. A fantastic and a well-deserved first win for Esteban Ocon in Formula One.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and fully well-deserved from Esteban Ocon. And like you said, I expect Alpine will have a huge party, as well as Williams. I expect there'll be music blaring throughout every team on in the paddock today. As we see the Drivers' Championship quickly before we end, Lewis Hamilton on 192 points now, with Max Verstappen on 186. So 6-point gap now for Lewis Hamilton as he heads into the summer break. That will be interesting. Lando Norris is still in third place with 113 points. Valtteri Bottas in 4th with 108. Perez 5th in the Drivers' Championship as well. So as we see Esteban Ocon celebrating, like I said, getting a full round of applause from everybody in the stands. What a fantastic race. And yeah, like we said earlier, it always seems to be that when me and Connor do a stream together, there's always something that happens. And of course, we had another red flag incident, a lot that's happened. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to do the stream and the watch along for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And of course, you know, stay tuned and subscribe to the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel as well. We're going to be doing all the F1 races, watch alongs throughout the season as well. So when we come back after the summer break, the Belgian Grand Prix will be a race watch along as well. So tune in for that as well. But yeah, Connor, thank you very much for being on the stream with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And it's been an enjoyable race to do that as well.
Yeah, another enjoyable one. And next time you see me and Jack lined up to do a stream together, put a bet on for a red flag to happen, because they always seem to happen.
We might let people know in advance if we're doing the stream or not. Just maybe they can put that bet on just before the race starts that there may be a red flag. But there always seems to be something happening when me and Connor do the stream. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching the stream today. And of course, we will see you all in the next watch along, whichever sport it is, on the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all very soon. Take care.